China, the world's oldest civilization, was born here. Thousands of years later, it is one of the world's chess powerhouses. For most of the past 30 years, China has held the most prestigious title in women's chess. The legacy of the Women's World Championship is rich. Menchik, Gaprindashvili and Chibanitsa, Kosteniuk, Xijun and Ho Yifan. Now, three-time world champion Zhu Wenjun is defending her title once more. After vanquishing the likes of Katerina Lagno and Alexandra Goryashkina, another rival awaits. Challenger Lei Tingjie had to defeat 3 grandmasters in matches herself to get here. In the first 2 rounds of the candidates, she took on sisters Maria and Anna Muzichuk and won. Then in the final, she beat former world champion Tang Zhongyi.
And that's it!
Resignation! Lei Tingjie, the winner of the 2023 candidates finals.
Will Zhu Wenjun defend, or will we have a first-time champion, Lei Tingjie? Half the match is in Zhu's hometown of Shanghai, half the match in Chongqing, where Lei hails from. Who will win and claim their share of the €500,000 prize fund? Welcome to the official broadcast of the 2023 FIDE Women's Chess Championship. Hey everyone, good morning! And we are returning to the City of Dreams, Shanghai, for the very last time for Game 6 of the 2023 Women's World Championship match. And after yesterday's monumental victory by the challenger Lei Tingjie, all eyes are going to be on reigning 3-time Women's World Champion Zhu Wenjun as she plays for the last time in her home city. Will she make that much needed comeback today? We'll find out. I'm your host, International Master Ivanka Hauska, and as always, it's a great pleasure to be commentating alongside someone who has won nearly everything in women's chess. She's been a Women's World Champion, Women's Rapid Champion, and also Women's World Cup winner, Grandmaster Alexandra Kosteniuk. Good morning, Alexandra.
Good morning, Ivanka. Well, we are very excited because yesterday it happened, what we've all been waiting for, this first decisive game. So the score is not even anymore. And that means that Zhu Wenjun is behind. She needs to win at least one game to get back to the match. And will we see this victory today? Or shall we wait for something more? Or maybe it's gonna be Lei who will score another monumental victory in the match.
That would certainly make history if Lei Tingjie did that. And there we can see the scoreboard after 4 very tense games. The ice was broken yesterday as Lei Tingjie secured that very important win with the white pieces. And this time, Zhu Wenjun for Game 6 will be playing with the white pieces for the very last time in Shanghai. This is her home city. This is where most of her home crowd will be cheering and rooting for her. And there we can see the players settling in. The tension is rising. And as Alexandra says, what will happen? Will Zhu Wenjun get that much needed comeback? She's looking focused. And when it comes to these two, obviously Zhu Wenjun will be playing this match. Is she in a must-win situation already?
Not yet. I don't think we are at this point just yet. Still 7 games to go, and 4 games was white, right? So quite a long road. Just the most important thing is not to lose the second in a row. That's, I think, the most important thing right now for Zhu Wenjun, because it happens, you get upset. You kind of have this feeling that you need to win back, to strike back immediately, and you overpush. You at some point you just go too far, and yes, that's when defeats happen. So it's a very interesting game in terms of psychology, in terms how players gonna react, how they adjusted to this new situation of Wenjun being behind and Lei leading the match. Being a leader, it's like extra pressure as well. We shall not forget about it. So yes, I am looking forward, as always, to this new chapter of this match. We'll see how it will proceed.
Definitely. And one change I did notice is that the glasses are off for Wenjun, and of course, while the players are getting ready for battle, let's have a quick look at their matchups and their head-to-head scores. We can see that Wenjun is the more experienced player, and interestingly enough, when it comes to the classical rating, it is Lei Tingjie who has now overtaken Wenjun in the live chess ratings. And classical victories, we can see Wenjun still holds a lead, but it's a narrow one after Lei Tingjie's victory yesterday. And let's head back to the playing hall because, well, everything is getting geared up for those first moves to be played.
Yes, the official moves were made, and at least Wenjun pointed out to the d pawn. It doesn't mean that she is going actually to play d4, because some of the players, they just point to any piece, right? Or they say, you can move any of my pieces and I take back this moved piece, and I will change my mind and play something else. But in case of Wenjun, we might see d4. Yes, we might see first d4 because, well, Lei, she was changing openings, right? And we're gonna talk in more details about that when the game begins. And changing openings is, it's a tricky thing. It just may indicate that you are not sure in one of your openings, and you're kind of afraid of your opponent preparing something, and you you're trying to surprise your opponent each time. You're trying to be first one to get out of this opening book. It might mean a completely different thing. It might mean that Lei is so well prepared that she's prepared 3-4 openings, and she's very confident in playing all of them. Both theories might be true, and in any way, I don't think there is any reason for the moment for Wenjun to change something, especially since she's been playing d4 mostly throughout her career.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's still very much early days, but once we finish this game, the players will be passing the halfway mark. The tournament does move to Chongqing, which is Lei Tingjie's home ground. And I'm just wondering whether Wenjun will be inspired by the fact that this is the last game in Shanghai. This is where she hails from. And we see Wenjun with the white pieces. She's concentrating hard. What is she going to do? Play d4, or will she get the first surprise of the day by opening up maybe with a knight? We'll see.
Or with a c pawn, right? Also possibility to play c4, the English opening.
Yep. But somehow with the c pawn, Lei Tingjie might open with e7, e5. And then the game takes a kind of character that perhaps Lei Tingjie is more familiar with. But we will see. They're keeping us all in suspense.
Right.
Tick tock, tick tock. I can't handle the tension. And we are less than 1 minute from the start of play. And there again, we see Lei Tingjie looking up at the ceiling. And she's been very expressive with her emotions.
Yes, she is such a charismatic player, right? You like watching her because her face expressions change all the time, and kind of makes it entertaining to watch in a way, because she looks very sad. Maybe it's just her, regular, she's more to herself, she's more closed person in a way, and it's definitely like it looks like a battle of extrovert and introvert in a way, and that's why this match is so interesting to watch.
And Wenjun, no surprises here. She opens with the queen's pawn, and now Lei Tingjie pausing, which indicates that maybe she's not going to pick up the queen's. No, she did. She just kept us guessing.
Another
D5.
Queen's Gambit. Yes.
It is.
Queen's
C4.
Gambit.
And Lei Tingjie, she's tried the she's tried the Tarash, and now she is trying, she's tried the, what do we call that?
The Vienna Gambit. The Vienna Gambit, yes.
Mm-hmm. And she is supporting that pawn with the king's pawn. Are we going to see a queen's gambit declined? Are we going to see a Rogozin? Are we going to see something aggressive or something well prepared? Ooh, pawn takes pawn.
Just here, just now. Well, it's an interesting beginning, right? Usually white captures on d5 after some of the knights are developed. But here white captured immediately to avoid some lines with knight takes d5. For example, like if white would start with knight c3, knight f6, and then capture on d5, knight takes d5 becomes a possibility, right? Get into the semi-Tarrasch lines, and that's probably why, like e6 here, knight c3, like a common move, knight f6, and c takes d5 is a possibility. And here e takes d5 is gonna lead us to this Carlsbad structures that we might witness in this game, but there is another option for black to capture with the knight. And here white tries to avoid this possibility. Yes, knight takes d5, and here comes a semi-Tarrasch, right? Many lines, huge like theoretical field. And instead white started by capturing with the d5, e takes d5, and here she developed her knight to c3, like inviting black to play knight f6 and kind of transpose to this Carlsbad variation. That's what white is trying to get. Well, I assume, I'm not a big expert in that, but I assume there are other moves for black to make except knight f6. And that's why c takes d5, like capturing on the third move, is less common than bringing the knight to c3 first.
Yes, it is less common for the simple reason that in this particular line, it is, as you mentioned, black hasn't played knight f6, and so it does allow, after black has reinforced the center, to actually develop the light squared bishop. Now there is one danger to this, and that is you must not castle the black king too early. And I wonder whether Lei Tingjie is aware of this pitfall. Instead, she's played c5. Okay, let's that wasn't expected at all. c5. I was expecting
let
a normal
me check.
Carlsbad.
Right, but what did she play against Tan Zhonghui in her candidates match? Let me quickly check, because there were some games between them with something. Well, the database doesn't want to behave, with something like similar, or it seems to me that was similar. But okay, let me check it out and I'll let you know. And other than that, okay, yes, that's why I'm saying it was similar. Tan Zhonghui did play like d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c5, c takes d5, e takes d5. Okay, so like with a little like deviation, right? Different move order. We did see the same line happening in that game. And Lei was playing black also and made a draw, and that's exactly the position actually that happened in that game. What we see on the board right now, like Wenjun just played e3, right? And Tan in that game a few months ago
before.
Yes, played before, exactly. And so we can surely say that Wenjun prepared something for this game. So let's enjoy a home preparation for the moment and see what Lei has in mind.
Yeah, and well, it's interesting that they're actually playing very quickly into this line, and this line is meant to be slightly better for white just because white has the bishop pair, and e3 played. Now e3 did fall into my inbox one day because it was recommended by the I can't remember where he's from, Grandmaster Alex Kolovich. And he said that this is kind of his way of killing this opening. He felt like white is slightly better, black is just simply for a draw. Playing for a draw after this, queen b4, queen d2, takes, bishop takes, and then... Okay, but Lei Tingjie, she's been very well prepared. She's arguing no, because to my eyes, this looks like white has everything they want from an opening. You know, they've got the bishop pair, the position is also very open. I mean, how is black going to look at neutralizing these two weapons?
Yeah, this modern theory, right? Getting into an endgame straight out of the opening. So yesterday we were like hesitating between calling a position that actually happened in the game, like choosing between middle game or endgame. Now we have no doubt. The queens are gone. So we're seeing this endgame, and how, I mean, can this pair of bishops be something valuable like for white? They definitely, I mean, Wenjun and her team definitely believes in bishops, while Lei, yes, they are playing incredibly fast, so it's like a blitz game. Okay, guys, stop, we still need we just still need some time to figure out what's going on. I'm just trying to see if there were any games played with the same position, and I don't seem it doesn't seem so. Short side castle on the 14th move seems to me, at least according to my database, as a novelty. And well, there were some games in Title Tuesday. We were discussing before this broadcast that nowadays there are so many games in the database thanks to this Title Tuesday events, and some of them, they do have theoretical value, surprisingly, right, for blitz tournaments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So up until move 14, this had all been played for, but castles, it was Lei Tingjie who made the first novelty, and she didn't seem phased by that at all because she's the one move deeper. Castles, to which Lei Tingjie just said, okay, a6, and now b3 seems to have come as a surprise to Lei Tingjie.
But again, nowadays you have to check the engine lines and see where's this moves allocated according to these engines, because of course these players and their teams, they do like check every single possibility according to the engine first, and then to some human beings second, and b3 still, well, at least to my engine, it's one of the first suggestions here. Let's try to understand the reason behind this move, because b3, well, it just doesn't seem so obvious to me. Probably to get the king out to b2, right? Because black eventually, I think they're planning to play b5, bishop b7, or bishop f5, rook c8. Yeah, I think that's the reason. So if...
Well, let's dive in. Let's dive in and have a look at what black can play, because Lei Tingjie does look like she is settling in for a big thing. And we think b5, right? b5 makes sense after a6.
Well, no, I was just trying to understand like why white played b3, but now I see that if, for example, they would choose something else, then bishop might go to f5, and white's king can become a little uncomfortable if the pawn is still on b2, because there's rook c8 coming up, right, and there is some tension on the c file. Well, after b3, yes, if here black plays bishop f5, then white can simply play king to b2, Or first rook
Okay.
h2 e1, preparing for b5. Yeah, I like rook h2 e1 because after b5 you can get your bishop to f1. Looks a little bit strange, but
But at
it is a
least you're not
possibility.
interfering with the rook, right?
Right.
So I like bishop f1. I mean, there are many English grandmasters who have been telling me that don't worry about bishops being on the developing squares because they're long-range pieces. They can still function very effectively. And yeah, rook e1, this still looks, well. But yeah, and luckily for white, you know, she has the bishop on d2, which is covering some of the key squares, b4. And as you mentioned, if the rook does come to line up against the king, it can sidestep with king b2. And
Yeah,
there
so
is-
right, in general, I think White's plan is about stabilizing now the position, like bringing all her pieces into play, and then probably trying to exchange rooks. More rooks are exchanged. I think it would be better for White because it's going to be easier for her to like bring her king into action and play on the queen side again. As you mentioned, bishops are long range pieces. That means they can easily play on two sides of the board, and especially like the queen side, I think is the place for them to be active, to try to create a passed pawn there, because if they succeed in creating a passed pawn on the queen side, that's gonna be like the end of the game.
It is completely the end of the game, and is such a good point that you should be looking at trading off the rooks if you're playing with the white pieces. So yeah, and we do have a move from Lei Tingjie, and that is bishop f5, as you predicted. King, but b5 definitely not the move. And
King
okay,
b2. Wenjun continues to play very fast, very fast. She's still in
And
her
be-
books.
and because the players they handled the opening stage so quickly, shall we actually just return to the beginning and let's process everything move by move. So okay. d4. Let's head back, and there we can see this is no surprise to Lei Tingjie, and she also copies. And after c4, e6, this was the small surprise from Wenjun. She voluntarily went into this opening, which as far as I know is not necessarily the best response for white, because it does allow the light squared bishop to develop. But Lei Tingjie, she had a plan, and she, after knight c3, she went for it, prepared as c5, and now after knight f3, knight c6, dc5, this has all been played before. This is the big idea that black has, is that you want to attack the knight. And of course, white needs to put the knight on a stable square, so knight came to a4 and overprotected this c5 pawn. But there is a tactical way for black to win it back, but it comes at the cost of the bishop pair. Bishop takes pawn, and this is again all theory. And after queen a5 check, gets blocked with the bishop, queen takes knight, and this opening worked well against Tang Zhongyi. But Tang Zhongyi played b4, and this was the candidate final match between Lei Tingjie and Tang Zhongyi. And Tang Zhongyi played b4, which is very aggressive, but you can handle this in a more positional way, which is simply just to go into an endgame. But say you've got the bishop pair, and e3 played. This was Wenjun's black prep, and after here, and queen blocks, the queen gets traded, and knight e7 played, just to coordinate the knights. And I can still see some moves coming thick and fast, so I go through this very, very, very quickly. Bishop c4, and the novelty, as Alexandra highlighted, get the king to safety, and Wenjun was not flummoxed at all, and also continued with her plan of mobilizing the pieces, getting the rooks lined up in the center. And after a6, b3 was the big idea, getting just a kind of hiding hole for the king on b2. And Here it was where Lei Tingjie, she had been blitzing out the moves. She took a pause and continued with the plan of playing bishop f5, just to cause some discomfort to the king. And after king b2, king is safe. b5, and this is different because after we were kind of looking at after bishop f5 going rook h1 with the idea of tucking the bishop on f1, and this one looked very, very good. But instead, we see Wenjun. She was not afraid. She continued with her plan of playing king b2. King is now safe on the dark squares. And after b5, the bishop retreated to e2. Rook to f to d8, challenging the d-line. And this is where we're at.
Right. And still, the players playing so fast that we can barely keep the track of what's going on. But okay, in general, it's going to be a long endgame fight. Of course, why didn't go for this line just to make a draw? They do hope, Wenjun does hope to have to prove that a pair of two bishops, despite the engine evaluation, means a lot, and it's going to be a long game, and maybe the eval bar is like at the middle right now, indicating that it's closer to a draw. But again, the game will proceed, the situation is going to change, she's gonna try to put some pressure onto her opponent, and it might eventually pay off. While Lei is very confident, it's not for the first time she's playing this opening. She's prepared it long before her candidates match, probably for the whole candidate cycle, maybe even before that. So she has a lot of experience, and she's very confident in being able to hold this slightly inferior position. She's saying yes. She's saying to Wenjun, you have a pair of two bishops, but I do believe in my knights. I do believe that I will be capable and able to hold this endgame, and I'm sure she's played many training games against her team and coaches with this kind of endgame, and she knows like the basic plans, ideas, things that she should be playing for, or pieces that should be aiming to change, and we'll see who is better prepared and whose strategy will be more successful.
I agree with you. I think she would have definitely needed to play many training games here, because to my eyes, I would just simply assess this position as worse. Not even slightly worse, like worse, because the bishop pair is very powerful. And as you highlighted earlier, when it comes to the placing of the kings, Black's king is far away from the action, and White has a very straightforward plan, as you highlighted, just to get rid of all the rooks on the board. And as soon as the rooks come off, then you can just imagine that destabilizing moves such as a4 are going to be very problematic, because the bishops are so powerful. It is worrying to me. But then again, Lei Tingjie, she looks confident. She's just blitzed out the moves here. So she has a plan. And like you say, she for sure has played training games. One of the things that I like to do when I'm preparing positions like this is I will often take the side of against the opening that I plan to play. So I often get my phone out, and because the phones are so strong these days, and say for instance I'm training in my Caro, I make the computer play the Caro against me, and I will play White, and it plays all sorts of nonsense, and I'm struggling with the white pieces, and so I'm like borrowing ideas from this device. And I think it's a nice effective training. You play the side that you're not going to be playing, and you also get to kind of like feel whether you're comfortable. Would your opponent be comfortable in this type of position? But if you don't have cloud engines, I recommend something simple as the phone. You can do this as well on the train. You can just get out your phone and get out this position that you want to play and then make the computer play it out for you. Because because one of the things that I find with computers is that if, for instance, I were playing the Caro-Kann, and which is my opening, and the computer were playing white, it would just crush me all the time, and that's just depressing.
So you want to crush it with the white
No,
pieces?
it crushes me. It crushes me. You know, I mean, sometimes I played the most ridiculous. It plays the most ridiculous approach. Like, it doesn't even develop the pieces, and still, I'm like thinking, oh, it's not that easy to coordinate things. Computers are very strong. Rook f to d8. So for sure, Lei Tingjie, she's confident. She's prepared this line.
And her idea now is to play bishop d3. Her idea is to exchange this pair of bishops, right? For example, if white plays rook h2 e1, something very logical, putting a second rook on the open file, then bishop d3, I think, will come up. And if black manages to trade, like at least a pair of bishops, then it's not two bishops, right, anymore.
It's not two bishops. But still, this makes me nervous. The king coming in, you know, the fact that
the
all the
knights are
action
on
will
the
happen
board,
on.
right?
That's true, and the rooks haven't left the game either. So, but I don't know. I've panicked and visualized the future where those rooks are off the board, and the white king is somehow making its way towards the a5 square, and black is powerless. But okay, this is.
I'm sure Lei imagines the future a little bit differently. She might also, right, share some vision skills.
I should hope so, to be honest. But bishop d3 is definitely an idea, just to neutralize the bishop pair, get them off the board. So, kind of dive in deeper. What if white were to go bishop to e?
Right, that's what I was going to say. Bishop e3 or bishop f4, trying to protect this d3 square. Knight d5 might come up. I mean, after any of those moves, especially after bishop f4, I believe. Attacking the bishop, and if the bishop moves away to g3, then knight, I'm not sure which one, probably d5 knight, will go to b4, with threatening to get to d3 and kind of forcing now white to exchange the slight squared bishop.
And that's a very powerful idea. I'm also wondering whether moves like, so rook f d8, that's a critical moment. So there are many options on the board. We have bishop to g5, we also have bishop to f4, bishop to e3. So bishop f4, I wasn't sure about that one. I was kind of favoring bishop e3, so that after knight to d5 you can come in. But still, this is a problem.
Yeah.
And even more of a problem because it will definitely force some trades to be initiated. So that's unsatisfactory. So big question for June. Maybe...
Yeah, how to keep those two bishops alive on the board. I know it's like a modern chess in like full colors, because okay, you like if you just evaluate this position without any precision, just like by glancing at it, you say okay, it's a very pleasant endgame for white. They have like two powerful bishops, it should be better for them. But it's not about this, it's all about this precise moves. And Lei might agree that yes, if white will just stabilize the position and keep this pair of bishops on the board, it will be better for white. But now she has bishop d3 in mind, and it's just about time. Maybe white doesn't have enough time to stabilize it.
Yeah, maybe that is the problem, and you're completely right. It's all to do with concrete variations. It's the modern day of chess, because I'm sure in the olden days, like literally 5 years ago,
nobody would go to this endgame.
No one would touch this ending. They'd be like, ooh. Why would you just want to grovel this draw? But now it's like, okay, it's prove to me why this position is so bad. And it's actually not, because as you mentioned, there's no time to deal with his ideas of bishop d3 and oops, that was not what I wanted. Bishop d3 and knight to d5.
Right. And yes, I just I actually say to myself pretty often that I used to be criticized by different chess players and grandmasters and coaches in my early years when I was playing something that looked like dangerous or ridiculous or not to their standards, and they used to tell me, you shouldn't do that. Okay, for example, you shouldn't play g4, right? Or it weakens your king too much, or you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't do this. And in fact, as modern computers suggest nowadays, you can do anything if it works out, move by move. Of course, there are basic rules that you should be aware of, but it comes, as we say, that chess is 99% of tactics, right? It's 99% of calculation. And if you can prove your dubious looking moves to be exact, precise and true, so yeah, you can break those rules. And actually it's a big mastery to know where these exceptions happen. I was listening yesterday, watching this AIM Chess tour broadcast, and was wonderful commentary as usual, and I think it was Simon and David Howell and Simon Williams. They were discussing this players using this ridiculously looking openings, like Magnus Carlsen playing something b6 g6, something weird stuff, and they were saying, okay guys, but you don't do it yourself, right? You just don't repeat after these players. If these players play this kind of weird looking openings, you just don't do the same stuff in your own games, because again, those players, they have already mastered these basic rules, and they have this very deep understanding where they actually are allowed to break those rules. And it's a completely it's a very a very difficult thing to master. And even they, sometimes make mistakes and overstep this border where this exception should even sometimes they lose their games. So it's all about precision.
Totally agree with you. I think a lot of the times when people play these type of openings, unless you put in the hard graft beforehand, just don't try this at home. Don't touch this with a barge pole, because they understand the risk that they're taking, and like you mentioned, they understand the pawn structures that they can transpose to, they can use to their favor. And just before this game started, I was talking about Richard Report, and he came up with playing the Philidor. Now, most of us at home would be feeling really uncomfortable in such a cramped position, but he had figured out exactly where to put the pieces, exactly what trades to make, when to make those trades, and actually, in his last game against Duda, that he realized that he traded too early in the center, and so he was like, okay, this needs refinement. And anyhow, what I wanted to kind of point out, that there had been some serious thought, some serious study, and so the risk margin was quite low there. And we also saw Magnus just now in the AIM chess, just beginning with a6, e4, a6, and was like, hello, the St. George's against someone super strong.
Right. Yes.
Why are you doing this?
It's my personal just advice to all those coaches around here. You just don't criticize. If your young player breaks the rules, don't say you must not, never do it. No. Just ask him or her, even more importantly, why did you do it? What were your ideas, concrete lines behind it? Maybe there are some brilliant explanations behind it. And when you just say all the time that you should never exchange that, put this pawn up forward, don't develop, don't castle, and so on, when there are so many restrictions, it's kind of, I feel it's stopping in a way development of a young player. You should encourage, okay, those mistakes, they're nice. Okay, so maybe maybe, yeah, of course you should repeat like game after game about the importance of the center, like the importance of development of your pieces, and you should repeat those basic stuff. But still, if your young student makes something like a little bit shocking at the first sight, still try to understand her ideas behind it, and just help this player understand when those exceptions may be possible,
right,
and when they are not.
Do you know what my pet hate is? My pet hate is when you have a child, a very young child, just like you mentioned, okay, and they're cautious by nature, and they're playing kind of very clever, sophisticated stuff, and the coach tells them, you shouldn't be playing like that, you should be playing like pieces forward, blah blah blah, and you're just like, well,
right,
why not let someone play to their personality? Why not let someone, but just refine it, just engage with them, just show them possibilities, to expand in different ways. But at the same time, if this is their strength, just keep them motivated, keep them playing, and don't criticize and go cautious, because cautious is actually clever.
Yes,
clever chess, because you're anticipating what the opponent is doing. And so I will get off my soapbox because I've had this so many times.
Yeah, me too. I've suffered, and I have this like somewhere behind. I mean, your head. You have all these voices criticizing you, and when you're about to make a risky move, you say, "Oh, no, they're gonna say that, and they're gonna say that, and why am I doing that? I know that it's not like right, but there is no right and wrong. There's just this precise moves, and if you can kind of prove that you are right, then it's okay to break those rules and exceptions. But you should know, of course, you should first master the rules, that's for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just it kills the enjoyment as well. And I do feel that when you're playing chess, however you play chess, and also one thing, let me get back on my soapbox. Oh my, this is terrible. One thing that I'm really annoyed by is that people are so focused on rating, and it should be all
that's
about
terrible. It's terrible. Yeah, kids are usually, and they count those, rating points, or even chess.com rating points, and they say, what is your rating on chess.com? Say, I have no idea. I mean, it keeps changing. That's okay. That's what rating do. But it's not about rating, right? It's about the level of your play. It's about the quality of your games. Who cares? Like, what do you have? No, it's important. They have these goals of reaching 2100, and they say, yeah, I did it like a lifetime. Yeah. Okay, I mean, goals are great, right? They motivate you in a way, but just don't stress out. Like, ratings will come if you just play stronger.
Exactly. If you enjoy the game, naturally, you're going to get better. And it shouldn't just be about ratings. It also shouldn't just be about like whether you see chess as a competition. I personally think that, there's many levels to chess. Like, you have the hobby, like you just pick it up, play chess, enjoy the game, discuss the game with everyone you can. Like, for me, I would really love to see chess more as like a board game type, so to speak. So by that I mean just kind of like, you have 3 people in the room, everyone is discussing plans, everyone is just having fun. It's a social game, and that's one angle, and I think that should be nurtured way more often than it is. And then you have like the sporting element side to it. And I think the sporting element side really needs to combine more of live action commentary, where commentary is happening in the room, so that it engages the participants.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And I say this, I say this because just before this event in the end of June, I didn't go back in time, and basically I did some live commentary in Singapore, and it was in front of maybe a few hundred people who could not play chess, and I had my voice booming. That's the first time I've ever done commentary with my voice booming across the room, and I was very, very scared. But and then when I looked over at one point, I could see everyone was transfixed by the game, and suddenly everyone came running after the commentary. I'd done it with Nemo, amazing streamer, and everyone came running to us, and they're like, oh my god, I never knew chess could be so exciting. And that's like one way to market it to everyone, because you want it to be an inclusive game. And then I also think like this high level chess should be respected. It should be publicized as much as possible, and because I have to say, Wenjun and Lei Tingjie, they're keeping us engrossed into this game. I mean, the first 4 games might have finished in draws, and if you just look at the openings to begin with, you might go, oh, boring, Berlin draws. But no. There's been so many levels. And, even for the press conferences for the last few days, I've just seen some pictures. And you see Lei Tingjie, she's kind of relaxed, very happy. And Wenjun doesn't quite kind of seem to be in her comfort zone. She seems a bit frustrated, sad. And this yesterday was really sad to
cruel.
see the pictures, right?
No way.
Yeah, you could just see Wenjun. She just wanted to be out of there. But then again, she's now in this situation, and she needs to get a comeback win at some point. And it seems like Lei Tingjie in this opening battle has once again came to the game with sharper tools.
Right. Yes. So Wenjun is taking quite a long thing, right? More than 20 minutes already. Well, sometimes players do stop at a certain point and try to, despite the fact that they might have seen this position during their homework and preparation, they still want to take this time off to dive deeper into the position, to start thinking, to start their brain, to transpose their brain from recalling theoretical moves into this playing mode, because sometimes you just fast forward this stage and make mistakes, and that's certainly the thing to avoid. They blitz out so fast this moves that she has this luxury of spending even half an hour, getting deeper into the ideas of this position, of this endgame, because one inaccurate move and black is gonna equalize pretty easily, and that will be a draw. So precision is the key here.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, precision is key, and we are going to leave Wenjun to her thoughts there. We see her there with her hands on her head. She is thinking desperately, and of course this is the very last time that we will be in Shanghai, because the show will move on to Chongqing. And in the meantime, I think it's the perfect time to take a pause, and we'll find out whether Wenjun has navigated those opening troubles, those opening problems. So join us after this break.
Oh my goodness, 98? Whoa.
Bishop G5 with mate.
No way!
It has to give it. Mate! You bloated mate!
Chance, rook F7. Oh, whoa, no! No! No!
And hello, and we are returning back to Shanghai. Remember, this is the very last time that the players will be playing in this iconic city, because after a few days they will be moving to Chongqing, where this is Lei Tingjie's hometown. And of course, let's not forget that Wenjun, reigning three-time women's world champion, is trailing behind after Lei Tingjie's monumental victory yesterday. And we are in game 6 of the action, and so far the players did treat us to something like a similar to a blitzfest, but now the opening stage has passed and we are moving on to the middle game. Or hang on a second, is this a middle game, or is this an end game? Is this a queenless middle game?
Well, I think we're witnessing an end game. Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
Of course, we can say like multi-pieces an end game, but still, it feels like an end game already.
Yeah, it certainly has the characteristics of an end game. But there's one big difference. Whilst the rooks remain on the board, there is no way that the white king is going to get mobilized. Meanwhile, if the rooks get traded off, then it's going to be all about the power of the white king. And we left you just after Lei Tingjie had played rook fd8, and we thought that was preparing the idea of bishop d3, trading a pair of bishops. And after a pause, we saw Wenjun that in the break she did mobilize the rook, and after rook ac8, which was played almost instantly by Lei Tingjie, now again we see Wenjun take a pause.
Right.
So we are thinking, yes. I mean,
yes, still quite surprising for me, yes, not to see bishop d3 happening. But maybe rook 8 to c8 is a more aggressive move in a way, because, well, the rook is now like looking at the c2 square. You know, if the knight moves away from c6 at some point, rook c2 might become quite unpleasant. So white needs to take care of such ideas and keep them in mind.
So like one idea that just suddenly sprung to mind was that, you know, black could actually be very well threatening knight to e5.
Mm-hmm.
So with the idea that, okay, so I don't know, say you make a move, I know, don't criticize me, this is clearly not a move that's going to be happening, but this was something that could be. And after the king moves, do you want to move to a3? Actually, I might just have, I was thinking this. Might be a good idea, might be a good trade.
But yeah, in that case, probably rook takes d2, rook takes d2, and then rook d1 might, you know, at least make white feel safer, although I'm not sure if
and the king is coming.
Yeah, the king is coming.
So, okay, maybe this isn't a dangerous idea, but this is something that you do have to bear in mind. Rook c2, and if you can maybe get rid of this knight without sacrificing your own knight, then okay, rook c2 is unpleasant. So we'll find out. So rook ac8, as you mentioned, introducing the possibility of rook c2 once the knight clears the way.
Exactly. Okay. Still quite a long thought. Another one.
Yeah.
I find it quite difficult and challenging, you know, to be able to think for 2-3 moves in a row, like long think. And I sometimes you tend to, if you like think for more than 20 minutes on one move, then you tend to make the second one, I mean the coming one, faster. And that's the thing to avoid. I find it that you need to find this patience to recuperate to yourself and kind of force yourself to think as much as needed for 2, 3, 4 times in a row, really depending on the position.
And there we see the players. Okay. There's a nice question from chat which says, who was our inspiration to become a chess player? So I'm going to put that question to you, Alexandra. I'm dying to know the answer. Who was your inspiration?
Nobody. I mean, I don't like this kind of questions because people keep asking them, expecting, this precise answer with the precise name. But I was not inspired by any chess players. I cannot even say that I was inspired by chess in general. I mean, I was, of course, a very I like competitive person, a competitive kid, right? But I like competitions in general. Okay, and it happened to be chess that I was kind of forced into at the beginning, and I cannot say that I was somehow inspired by any big names. I wish I would, but yeah, I was just growing up competing against kids of the same age, and then of course I always admired great chess champions, but they were so much higher, than the level I was growing with. That I just they were like stars that you just watch, and they're so far away, and the light is so far away that you don't feel they're within your reach. So just this. I cannot, unfortunately, answer these questions. That's why this kind of questions, they always make me uncomfortable in a way.
But I actually have a very similar story. I wasn't. It wasn't a choice of mine. It's not like chess found me. I saw it being played, and I was like, "Wow, what is that game?"
Yes.
No, that did not happen with me. It was no Beth Harmon story here. So I mean, no, my father played the game, and his father played the game, and so he was like, "My children will learn the game," and so we started playing, and what happened actually was that. It was quite a funny story. So I knew, he decided that he would teach me how the pieces move, but it was my brother, he was the oldest child. They got all the attention focused on him, and they needed a filler one day. I was very young, maybe 5 years old, and they did a filler in a tournament, and my mum was the one who just suddenly pushed me in and said, "She's playing, she knows how the pieces move." And I happened to, and from that I won the tournament or something like that. I did super well, and my dad was like, "Hello."
Who is this?
I have 2 kids I can now push. And then he just he was very ambitious for us, and he dedicated his life to taking us to tournaments, to teaching us chess. He was really inspired by Judith Polgar's dad, and he was like, okay, well, just with chess, and I'm very grateful to him that he did this. But like you, because I wasn't a game that found me, I wasn't necessarily like, oh, this person was my inspiration. But I can say, whenever we got chess magazines, I was, being a girl, I was only drawn to females.
Girls.
And I would follow every single game that they played. I saw the pictures, I knew their names, I knew their openings, and I wasn't necessarily inspired by them, but I was definitely kind of taken by the idea that there was more girls, more women playing games. So this is why I think visibility is such an important topic. And but also I remember the very first time I interacted with a grandmaster. So I think I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and it was at the Barbican Centre, and it was Julian Hodgson and John Nunn. And they were kind of recording these positions, and they were putting them up on the demo boards. I'm that old. And and I was thinking, how can they possibly just recall a position? Because that seemed to be incredible. And they were like, there was this nice jamming between the two, and I just thought, I want to be like them when I'm older. So for a while, I wanted to be a mathematician, except I was so young, I called it maths magician. Just because John Nunn was a maths magician.
Right. So you did have inspiration in a way, right?
But some inspiration. But definitely Judith Polgar. If I had to say someone, Judith Polgar and her sisters, I followed everything they did. And I read all the stories. And yeah. But I kind of like say I really want to be them when I grow up? No, that wasn't the case. But Jess is we all have our stories.
I have one story about I was attending a chess camp. One of the few, unfortunately, that I was able to attend, because at that time, the Soviet Union was collapsing, and these camps that used to be regular, they almost stopped, right, because of the lack of financial support. But nevertheless, I was able to attend a few run by Yuri Ruzovaev. And I was, very young, also 6-7 years old, something like that. And there was a TV crew coming, filming us, interviewing, and they asked me a question that, okay, there's Judith Polgar, and when you grow up, you're going to play against her, right? I mean, you're going to compete against her. And I was saying, nah, I won't. And they said, why? Well, because she will get just too old and she won't play anymore. I was very cruel. Right, I'm sorry, but that was an answer of a 6-year-old.
I love that answer.
Kids can be cruel.
They can be cruel. I remember you asking, when you were asked that kind of question when you were little, you're like, oh yeah, when I'm 40, I'll be walking with a walking stick.
Right, exactly. Yes.
I will stay at home, I was like, whoa, yes. No, we've all been there. She's doing. And of course, you did play Judith Polgar, and you played her many times, right?
Oh no, just twice. In 2 Blitz games. This in Moscow, this famous Blitz championship that I've taken some scalps during this event.
Yeah, I remember because I remember it was just you beat so many grandmasters there in very sharp positions, and I was like, wow. It was both you and Judith, and that's so rare to see. Yeah, and Magnus, he was a little bit naughty against you. He tried to take a move back.
Well, I didn't allow him to do that. And I put this video, and people complaining, okay, come on, you say you beat Magnus Carlsen, but in fact, it was just because you called the arbiter. That's it. That's the only reason you beat him. Yeah, well.
No, it wasn't. That was not the case. You were actually winning, and he kind of tried to take a move back.
No, I was not winning. To tell you the truth, the position was already a little equal, but not winning.
Okay. No, anyway. The trend that I have felt, it was that you were better, at least. You were better.
Yeah, let's believe so. Yeah, let's believe so. I was putting pressure again. It's all about putting pressure, onto your opponent, because if you just play a game against someone very highly rated, they won't make mistakes out of the blue, right? If they make mistakes, that means that you did something to provoke those mistakes, and that's in any kind of sport and battle. And that's what I keep saying to my daughter. Rating doesn't matter. The only thing that matters, you should put pressure onto your opponent. You should, in her case it's tennis, I say that if you come to play a match, you should come to the court, and your opponent, just by looking at you, just should understand that you will do everything that is in your power to win this match. You're here to win this match, and you're here to put this pressure and to make them make mistakes. Because if everything, comes easy, if you're the one, stumbling upon, they're not gonna make any mistakes. So it's up to you really to force your opponent. It's your task. In order to win the game, of course you can play the perfect game, but it rarely happens, to be the truth. So it's this unforced errors. I was always surprised to hear about those unforced errors in tennis. I say, come on, how those errors are unforced? They are forced. It's just your opponent kind of putting this pressure that you cannot measure really. But it is here. It is in the atmosphere, in your movement, in your play that make this people make mistakes. So yeah.
And Oh, okay. And whilst the play, I completely agree with you there, Alexandra. It is all about confidence. It's all about maintaining that and putting pressure on your opponent, but understanding what things are unpleasant for them as well. And I see a question from chat and says, asking me to talk a little bit about my book that co-wrote with James Assenger called The Mating Game. Yeah, so it's just a novel set in the chess world. It's about a woman. She's trying to make a living from chess, but I mean, it's not really just about chess. It's just more about her adventures in life. And in exciting news, I don't know whether I should be saying this, but whatever, I'll whisper it. Maybe no one will. We do have a script for it, and that is currently in Hollywood.
Movie.
Yeah, maybe it will be made into a movie, but you never know. You never know.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Right.
Exactly, and it will be. If it happens, it will be slightly different from the book, but it will be very, very exciting to have some project like that. And
Perfect.
whilst I was talking about the mating game, well, this game being played, and the bishop did come to g5, asking questions to the e7 knight.
Right. And you know what I noticed? We briefly mentioned this fact that the players actually, they keep sitting at the table. They don't leave. I mean, this Wenjun, she was thinking for more than 40 minutes, right? She spent about 40 minutes for her last two moves. And Lei, she's always been there. She was present, was also thinking, and that's amazing. I mean, because I say to myself, okay, if I would see this endgame, that I've seen already in my home preparation, that I've played so many games with, I would just leave the table. I let my opponent contemplate that. I just will not have this patience to sit and look at this position. And but Lei, she was there all the time.
Yeah, I are very much in the pacing camp, so I would feel very restless, and I would find it difficult to maintain my focus, my concentration. So the best thing for me personally would be just to get out of there, get some food, and then just kind of like walk up and down and talk to myself. You can do this, But Lei Tingjie, she's very much present, like you said. So this is something that both sides, Lei Tingjie, Wenjun, they are friends. They know each other very well. So they've both made a concerted decision to be sat there present at the board. Perhaps it's just a pile on the pressure, as you've mentioned. And talking about piling on the pressure, shall we now take a deep dive into the bishop g5 and its consequences?
Yes, of course we shall. Let's definitely stop bishop d3. But the main question is where this bishop is going to move after f6, where she is planning to go. Is she planning to go to f4 e3? I doubt it, because of knight d5. Back to d2, I also doubt it. So probably the only reasonable square left on this diagonal, at least for the bishop, is on c1. And then the question which comes to my mind, was it really worth of including this bishop g5 f6 to provoking black make this move, or whether it was better just to go to c1 immediately, to protect the square on d3 and to open up the d file, because we've talked through that white's plan should be connected with the exchanging of rooks, and it just will make will take off this initiative from the black side, and will make white's task of improving her pieces so much easier. So I'm not sure. It's a very difficult question, and Wenjun was trying to answer that. For some reason, she decided to include this bishop g5 f6 first before getting to c1. If she is going to get to c1, I don't know, but there don't seem to be many other reasonable squares to go with the bishop too. And because after bishop c1, I still expect knight d5 to be played, right? Because knight d5, knight b4, knight d3 idea seems to be quite...
But there's still some possibility, because only consequence I can see of f7, f6 is that this the king is now standing on an open diagonal. And I'm just going to throw in a little anecdote that in Bent Larson's Good Move Guide, he was talking about kings being very unsafe on open diagonals. Don't forget that fact. And if the knight comes to d5, it is possible to go a4 with the idea. Okay, and I can see the evaluation bar does not approve.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just doesn't work. White doesn't have time for that because White's king is in trouble as well. We mentioned the rook being on the c file and heading towards c2, right? And now knight c to b4, for example, just threatens a checkmate. Look, if White keeps ignoring and capture on b5, like rook c2, rook e2, it's a checkmate.
And that's it. It's game over.
Yeah.
King cannot hide, and look at that. So, okay, that a4 is not possible because the idea that I had in mind was after moves like a4. If you do take, so this is something to have in the back of your mind. There's a possibility of going bishop c4, or even throwing in bishop a6, and then retreating to the c4 square. But timing is everything, and it's not possible to make that move right now. So bishop g5, bishop c4, knight d5, and still. Then, if a4 is not possible, then you probably should go very positional, and Wenjun is a positional player.
But how to go positionally?
I'm thinking of doing the old thing of controlling the knight circuit. So just keep that square under control.
a3, okay, but it kind of also weakens. It doesn't let, of course, black knight get to b4 immediately. But can't I play? If I play b4, I think you want to play bishop c4, right?
Yes.
That's your idea. And do I have time now to go away with my knight, c6 knight? I mean. Like to create this rook c2
but then knight d4 comes, because that's the consequence of everything.
Still,
it's quite nice. It's quite nice when your opponent tells you what they're going to play. They say, hey, if you move your knight, I'm going to move it there. It's like, oh, thank you.
Yes, I know. No, I used to dream about this possibility because we have a very popular book in Russian for kids, and it's about the adventure of Alice. It's like not the Alice in Wonderland, but it's like more advanced Alice, like Alice in the future, saying there are ships and robots and everything. It's like there is a movie and animated movies. But anyway, there is an instrument, I forget how it's called, but when you open it, it has a magical crystal inside it, and it tells you what the person in front of you is thinking. And it's like reading minds instrument. And I used to dream about having these and opening it up during a game and listening to my opponent's thought. And I thought, it would be so helpful. So so you stopped my idea. But sometimes you can read your opponent's thought without this magical instrument, magical crystal, just asking yourself this question, where all those pieces are heading to.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It is possible to... That's the beauty of chess. I mean, everything is open. The information is there on the board. You just have to read it. And I was inspired by your last move of checkmating with knight b4, but I was thinking of strange moves like knight c3, but that's not possible. And we do have a move from Lei Tingjie, and she has played f6. So again, is Wenjun planning just to retreat the bishop to its starting square? Why not? Bishops are long-range pieces. You don't want to be... Set of rooks have left the board, and now we see Wenjun speeding up. But hang on a second. So knight takes rook is now possible.
Yeah, knight takes e8 is definitely a possibility. Well, in that case, White will still need to get her bishop back somewhere. and rook c2, right, is coming after that. Well, let's try to investigate what's going to happen, because it looks like a forced line.
It is a forced line, right? So knight takes rook, rook takes rook. Okay, so we have the time in the world. Lei Tingjie is thinking, shall we investigate? Knight takes rook.
Okay, knight takes d8. Well, there are two moves to investigate. Knight takes d8 and rook takes d8, right? But knight takes d8 seems more forced. Now I need to retreat my bishop somewhere. Okay, let's say it's bishop e3, right? Or somewhere. If I get to e3 and you are giving a check to c2.
Yep.
Well, I can't go to b1 because of rook takes e2. And, well, by the way, she captured with the rook, but anyway. And if I go to a1, it's a little bit sad in a way. But
it's a bit
to
passive.
a3, yeah, but to get to a3, it's also kind of scary, because
that's very scary, because like mating nets galore, right? So I think king a1 is the only move, and then you argue, I guess, that this rook on c2, it's not going to live a long life on that square.
Although you see, you can play knight d to c6, and if I play bishop d1. No, I mean the black knight, yes. And if I play bishop d1, you can insist of having the rook on c2 and play knight to b4. And yeah, I mean, it looks like a draw because it feels that I have to take on c2, you're gonna capture, and then you're gonna capture on e1, and okay, a lot of trades, a lot of exchanges, and looks drawish.
Opposite color bishops. But that was all kind of hearsay, because what happened is that after a pause, we do see that it is rook takes rook on the board. And, okay, still.
Lei is playing still very, very fast, because if she wouldn't know, right, that she's supposed to capture with this rook, then, I mean, she should at least have spent a few more minutes to calculate knight takes d8, because it looks so tempting, and in her style, right, bringing the rook, threatening to bring the rook to c2 and all those knight moves. I mean, but since she captured back pretty fast with the rook, she might be still in her opening books, because otherwise it's weird,
so.
You know, not to spend more time like contemplating over capturing with the knight.
Yeah, it is. And well, how many moves in? 21 moves in, and Lei Tingjie has 1 hour and 20 minutes on the clock. Wenjun, I have to say, she's been outfoxed at the opening stage in nearly every single game. We've seen Wenjun use a lot of time on the clock. She is now under 50 minutes, and question for her is, where is she going to retreat this bishop? I guess Lei Tingjie is just saying, you know, maybe bishop d3 is coming, your idea, or knight d5, knight b4. I also really like that move.
Well, without two rooks on the board, this knight d5, knight b4 doesn't seem so scary. But again, it's not clear whether white has possibility to maintain or play for any advantage, right? The line that we analyzed after without capturing on d8, like bishop c1, knight d5, and a3, the moves that you proposed, I liked it more in a way to keep like pressure on the board, but with the rooks present, right? The rook on c8 and d1. Here, like from one hand, okay, fewer rooks, there are less initiative black has. But at the same time, it feels like there might be less chances for white to fight for this advantage.
Yeah. And well, if you're not doing knight d5, then I guess you have to go to, let's dive in. I guess you have to, oops, the bishop is going to retreat I don't quite know where the bishop should go.
Let's put it to c1. Yeah, at least it's out of this knight's range.
No one can touch it. And okay, so we go to the second plan of going bishop d3. And just
can't I just insist on having two bishops present on the board and play bishop to d1? Looks quite passive, but I know that, in situations where you have a pair of two bishops, those passive moves there sometimes are okay, because eventually this bishop will get out.
Yeah, they're out after moves like b4, right? b4, a4, and if she can mobilize the other pieces and just kind of uncoil herself, all is going to be okay. And I agree with you, and it's also very much in keeping with Ju Wenjun's style. She's been having this approach throughout all the games that she wants to keep the game alive for as long as possible. And I saw an interesting interview yesterday with Nihua, who is the women's team chess coach, and also he's worked quite extensively with Ju Wenjun, and he said that Lei Tingjie has been a chess professional since she was the age of 15. So she's kind of been training for 8 hours per day since a teenager. And when it comes to style, he said Ju Wenjun has a very positional style. He said Lei Tingjie is more aggressive, and for him it's a battle between the shield, Ju Wenjun, and the sword. And there we see Ju Wenjun retreat the bishop to the d2 square.
Well, keeping this e1, a5 diagonal under control, just in case. So there are no knight b4 or some other ideas connected with the squares. But again, the knight on d2 is not very stable in a way, because it's been protected only by the knight on f3. The bishop on d2. It's protected only by the knight on f3, and if this knight is attacked at some point, even if black plays g5, for example, right now, white will need to take care, right, of this bishop again. So that's why we're suggesting bishop c1 or bishop e3. We're trying to put the bishop onto more safer places.
Yeah, and I think it was grandmasters like Alex Yermolinsky that kind of enlightened me about this idea of a tactical weakness, and you kind of highlighted it. So like one defender, one attacker, tactical weakness. And as you mentioned, once the knight gets dislodged, that's it. This bishop on d2 is loose. And okay, but Ju Wenjun, she's excellent at calculation, I guess. But
it's still quite far away, right? It's still quite far away, this g4 possibility. But yeah, Lei is looking up as if she is trying to remember. Again.
I've now brushed up on my body language 101. So here you go. Are you ready for this? So
yes.
If you look to the right, then you are imagining. If you look to the left, you are remembering. If you look to the right and down, then you have self-doubt. If you look to the right and up, you're lying.
Right and up. What was imagining?
Right.
Just
if you just look to the right.
To the right. Okay.
Look to the right, then just remember it. Look to the left, then look to the right or up. You're making things up. Now, whether this is necessarily true or not, I don't know. But anyhow, we did see Lei Tingjie. She was looking to the left, so this means she is trying to remember what she's going to do. And, well, it's the perfect time to take a second break, as the tension is rising in the playing hall of Shanghai. Beautiful city, and we'll find out more after the break exactly what happens. So see you in a few minutes.
Chess.com's game review recently got a major update. Here are 4 key notes. At the end of each game review, you will now see a summary of the game from your coach, your performance rating for that game, and a quick grade for you and your opponent in the opening, middle game, and endgame. We've added a new classification called miss for when a move fails to take advantage of an opportunity, but it is otherwise a sound move. We've also changed the definition of blunder. Now a move will only be considered a blunder if it loses material or allows a checkmate. Coach will now draw arrows and highlight squares when you hover over or click on the highlighted words in the move explanations. This should make move explanations easier to follow. Finally, Coach's explanations will now reference specific pieces and threats in the explanations, making move explanations much more intuitive. The new game review experience is available on chess.com right now.
Move over, Mittens. There's a new top dog in town. Benji the Bernadoodle might be an international master of fetch, but chess lessons with his dad, Gotham Chess, aren't really sticking. Host of his own public access TV show, Wishboy knows a thing or two about the most dramatic moment in chess history. A baller through and through, Buddy Buckets is moving his game from the basketball court to the chessboard. Watch out! Pinky practices chess from the inside of his mom's handbag on Woofstock's law campus. Don't judge a dog by its Diamante collar. Ponchik learned chess from his dad, GM Levon Aronian. He has never lost to another dog at chess and certainly won't lose to you. This July, the possumness is unleashed on chess.com.
I didn't think about winning or defending the goal. I just think we're still a strong team and hopefully we can play our best.
Hello everyone, and we are back in Shanghai in the playing hall, getting ready to see whether Wenjun can make that comeback victory she so desperately wants. And in the break, we did see Lei Tingjie. She should be nicknamed the Flash because she keeps playing moves so quickly. Well, she moved the bishop to d3 after a very short think. And now Wenjun is considering whether she should make that trade or whether she should preserve the bishop pair. So it's a perfect time for us to deep dive and explore the action.
Exactly, yes. This exchange is offered to white. I mean, I would prefer if I were in Wenjun's chair to keep the bishops alive, but not to trade here. But whether it's possible, it's like a different question. And bishop d1, the only, I think, possibility to keep the bishops on the board, like a pair of bishops on the board, looks a little bit passive. But again, we've talked through such possibilities, right? To put like bishops far away, to use all the time white needs to get back into the game, and as long as those two bishops are alive, they can like be activized, they can be put into back into play very fast.
Right, so let's have a look at some kind of ideas that white will have just to untangle. I mean, b4 is one, but I don't really like that one because it gives up the c4 square. And remember, squares, they're like coins. You gotta hold on to them. You gotta be your uncle, what's it, Scrooge McDuck. Got a counting house of money. And bishop d1. And I was just thinking it has to be to do with the knight. And this is actually where if I were white, I would really regret provoking f6, because if it were white to play, I would go knight e5 and initiate another set of trades of knights. But I feel that this one just relieves the pressure from white. But okay, so can you do moves like, yeah. Ideally, what you want to be doing is you want to go knight e1 and then go bishop f3 and then kind of slowly but surely.
I think my plan is a3 before, should be connected with a3 before.
So say black plays king f7, let's just say. That's a more improving move.
Exactly, and that's it's not so clear for me why. Yeah, the first place Zhu kind of helped black with this extra tempo, right, with the pawn on f6. Mm-hmm. It's not only protecting this e5, g5 squares, it also gives black a possibility to get to f7. And also, because of the fact that the pawn is already on f6, black can consider something active, such as g5, trying to attack the knight, trying to start playing actively on the king side. So with the pawn on f7, all those moves would not be possible, and black would need, time to spend time to play f6. Of course, I mean, f6 has its drawbacks, such as weakening this a2 diagonal, and in general in this pawn the square e6 in particular. But these ideas, they feel not so important compared to possibilities that black is giving. Yes, and the bishop is on d1.
It is on d1, and so we really might see this on the board. And while you were talking, I was really thinking about how to untangle. So maybe moves like rook e3. I mean, they're not. Or h4, try to take some space just to stop g5 from happening.
Yes, of course you would like to attack this bishop on d3, right? But rook e3 worries me a little bit because it kind of gets closer to black's knights, and black can start attacking, disturbing this rook by playing knight f5 and forcing it to get back. So I would still, I mean, if the king goes to f7, I would consider something like a3. But
Yep.
yeah, no, A3, Anna, yes, 3. But then
A3.
again, it's a question to me whether I really want to play b4. I mean, of course, I would like to play b4 and bishop b3, but the problem is that when I play b4, black would go to c4, bishop to c4, but maybe it's okay. Maybe in that case I can play bishop c2 and, try to get those bishops out little by little.
Yeah, I mean, I also kind of thought about playing b4, but I was really worried that it wasn't going to be a bishop that comes on c4. It would be a knight.
Yes.
So, and I really liked your idea of actually going g5, just to destabilize.
The king side.
And just to destabilize the king side, this knight, again, ask it where is it going to go. And, and if white is not quick, if you're not doing b4 right now, then of course, once the knight is destabilized, a knight can jump onto e5 and it can come to c4 and.
Yes. Yes. I mean, this position, we're gonna see some those small moves and small decisions, but in fact, and small looking moves, but in fact there might be big decisions, because every pawn move changes the structure, changes like the essence of the position. And like, for example, if after g5 here I play b4, right, then I suppose black is going to play g4, and suddenly, your dream is coming true, because when the knight gets away to, I don't know, h4, g1, nothing seems to be very...
right. Like, for instance, this would be a mistake. This would already be a mistake. Bishop b3 check, you just block it with a bishop, and already at the end of it, this guy is loose. Oh dear. The bishop is on prise, and that thing that we talked about a long time ago, it's happened, and it's a nightmare for white. So just little things like this, you're gonna have to take the time out to go h3, and as you said, that this feels very comfortable dynamically for black.
Exactly, because we said that already, that if white has time to get her bishops back into play to kind of stabilize, improve the position of her pieces, and this pair of two bishops might bring something to white. But in fact, it's all about timing. King f7 is on the board. It's all about concrete moves, and it looks now quite unpleasant for white, because it feels so much easier to play with black. Like, the moves are so easy to make. King f7, g5, trying to attack the knight, and then trying to bring your own knights into play, knight d5, knight e5. I mean, so many tactical resources. So, I mean, nothing to worry about whatsoever when playing black for the moment, and quite a hard task for Wenjun. Not to over push, right? We've talked about that, because she might feel this need to win back immediately, to even the score right now, right here, while still in Shanghai, so not to go to Chongqing being a full point behind. But at some point, it might become just dangerous for white, because one inaccurate move and the initiative goes to black, because they are more active. I mean, black pieces are more active, and well, we'll see how it goes.
We will see, and I think moves like a3 maybe are already inaccurate, just because it does allow black to see space. So an I was just gonna say h4 might be called for in light of the variation we just looked at, and h4.
So you are reading Zhu Wenjun's mind, all right? And that makes me wonder whether King f7, wouldn't it have been better to play g5 instead? Like, to start with g5 instead of king to f7?
Yeah, that thought crossed my mind as well. So let's just kind of go back in time to this moment where Lei Tingjie just quickly put the king to f7, And in light of everything that we looked at, g5 could be the more accurate move. After all, the king is going to come to f7, whether it likes it or not. Next move. And yeah, I agree. That could have been a critical moment for Lei Tingjie. But as it stands, h4 on the board. And now Lei Tingjie needs to continue with her initiative.
Yeah, we'll see how she does it, because hopefully it's gonna be her first long thought of the game, because she's been playing so fast, you know. She's just spent 20 minutes compared to almost an hour that Wenjun spent. And even though we say that this time difference in an endgame, it might not make like a huge difference at this point, but we shall keep in mind that eventually, okay, so they're gonna make moves, they're gonna reach this time control, and they would, well, most likely gonna get this additional 30 minutes, but 30 minutes is not that much, right? Time, I mean, it just means that Wenjun, up to the moment, already spent 1/3 of her time for the game.
Yeah. On the subject of time, I don't know about you, but yesterday it felt like it just passed very quickly. You know, I you know, because it was like an exciting narrative, and Wenjun about to lose, and before I knew it, the players, you know, Wenjun was down to 13 minutes on the clock. That went down to me, whereas in game 4, it felt like it was an eternity, like extra half hour.
Yeah,
it is a different type of position, and you can see which games I get excited by. I really do like it when one person is on the cusp of victory, whereas the slow grinds, I need to get better. So, but this one is going to also be a slow grind, as Wenjun aims to uncoil these tangled pieces. h4 on the board. And let's have a look at Lei Tingjie's possibilities.
yes.
So she can activate, she can expand on the king side. She can also activate this knight on e7, which isn't really doing too much.
I mean, usually when you see such a move such as h4, you tend to, you know, almost automatically try to reach to your exactly to your h pawn, and kind of, okay, you made this move and I make it as well. I mean, just well, just because, you know, just because, just in case. And I was wondering, yeah, whether Lei is gonna play h5, but okay, at the same time, the pawn on h5 does not seem to be as safe as the pawn on h4. Because, well, that's what makes this different. Well, white has a pair of two bishops. That means the pawn on h5 or on h6, it's gonna be attacked, right? Both on the white, on the black square, doesn't matter. While black can attack white's pawns with her bishop only on white squares.
Yeah, that's an important point. The bishop and the knight, they work on the light squares. These two bishops work on both squares. So that's why the two bishops are better than bishop and the knight. There was that philosophy, I think I mentioned it before, but it was, I later found out that it's actually from South American chess circles, that a bishop and a knight are actually inferior to any two of a kind minor pieces. So that included two knights, which surprised me completely. I was like, two knights? I don't think so.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but I don't know. This is very much debatable, and we will continue the discussion. So h5 on the board.
Right.
And,
what Ju's next move gonna look like? What she's gonna do? I mean, she should do something about her bishops, right? Yes. I mean, potentially it's a strong force, but right now they're looking like not in the right place.
They're not in a tip-top condition at the minute. I agree. And so, if what I mean, the moves that kind of I'm considering is, you know, I really want to activate this knight, but I can see that that's not going to be happening. The knight is controlled, and can it go to a good circuit, or is it just takes too long?
And good
It
circuit.
takes too long, and it loses control over the bishop on d2. And then other moves that mobilize, could go b4 just to improve this guy.
Well, a3, right, is always a possibility.
A3 is always possibility.
Just to stop black from playing b4, because if black plays b4, it kind of takes off some space, right? And it can have its drawbacks because the pawn on b4 is not as well protected. But yeah, Zhu is playing a3.
Yeah, 3 out of 3 for us
good.
here.
Yes, good, working well.
Do you think it's a good sign that they're actually playing our suggestions, or?
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Like, it's getting more. Still, it's getting more difficult. Okay, we guessed all the, starting with king f7, right? Basically, well, bishop d1 we also mentioned. So a few last moves were quite understandable, to us. But now I think it's getting more challenging for us to guess the next move, the very next move, because you don't really know what to expect. It might be a knight's move to d5 or f5. It might be bishop's move to f5, using the fact that g4 square is weakened and kind of regrouping your pieces a little bit. Maybe with the idea to play bishop g4 at some point. Because right now the bishop on d3 it looks nice, but it also covers the rook. And it would be nicer to have black's knight on d3, right? So that might be.
It would be.
Right. You like the idea?
I really, now I didn't even think about it, but now that you mentioned it, the bishop, let's put it up on the board. So I really do like this, because the thing is, if the bishop does come to c3, just gets out of the way, then this knight on e7 can just spring forward, start asking questions, and again, Zhu is not able to answer them. So, okay, bishop, and then if you do nothing, so say for instance after bishop f5, I'm struggling to come up with a move. Maybe b4. b4 is a consequence, right? You can't put a piece on c4 anymore. But still, even this, it's not simple, because the bishop still can come to g4, or I don't know whether you want to.
And now after b4, the c4 square is weakened, right? Yeah, but b4, seems as a good move anyway. But bishop g4, let's try bishop g4 anyway. And if you play bishop b3, I would just retreat to f8.
Yeah, it's important not to move to e8 and find yourself in the eyesight of this rook on e1. And as you mentioned, c4 is weakened. Now there's a direct threat against this, and you still, all of black's pieces are just protected as well.
Right,
so
and here I can even consider capturing on f3. I'm not sure if it's needed, but definitely. Although, look, if I capture, right, and I'm kind of quite happy, but then here at this point, it feels like those bishops, they start to work. And those white squares, finally, like rook, you can imagine rook getting to e6, white's rook getting to e6, and then, okay, you thought that everything will be so easy from that moment on for black, but in fact, even if white drops like a pawn, still a pair of two bishops gives often sufficient compensation for that.
I agree. Actually, when she suggested it, it came as such a surprise to me. I don't know why, but I got this flashback of the film Godzilla versus King Kong. I was like, oh, that is the eternal question. Don't. You shouldn't even try to understand what goes on in my mind. But bishop takes f3. Yeah, I agree. Don't get seduced by grabbing pawns if these two get opened up. And yeah, but again, after bishop, if you don't capture, then still you have ideas of the knight jumping into d5. You're still asking, okay, suddenly it's I always look at the evaluation bar
Just in case,
and it was,
right?
just in case, yeah, and it kind of started moving up in white's favor. And no, well, those moves are all kind of moot points, because instead we have a new move on the board, and Lei Tingjie has just played her pawn to g6, protecting h5. But the good news for Wenjun, because Lei Tingjie was playing the move so quickly, it does mean that now Lei Tingjie, her opening preparation is over, and the players are battling it out on fair terms.
Yes, well, I mean, she's not been hesitating, I must say, Lei. She's been making those last moves pretty fast. But also, one thing that I noticed, that Wenjun, she has been coughing. And I'm not sure if it's just, some kind of nervous cough, or she might have caught a cold. And we rarely talk about that, but since matches and tournaments are so long, there are so many things that actually happen behind the scenes, not only chess related things, but just this match is gonna last for almost a month, and imagine how many things can happen in a month, and it's just a lifetime. And every time you play a match or a tournament, it feels like you're pausing your life. It's on standby. I mean, apart from chess, and you kind of get into this routine, like chess, hotel, playing hall, hotel, back to playing hall, and it's but still, life is happening. You can get sick, you can start feeling unwell, and you still need to go on and play on. There is no way to take a medical timeout during. It used to be possible when matches were longer and unlimited. A player was allowed to take a medical timeout, while here nobody cares how you feel. I mean, you're sick, it's your problem. And it really, sometimes you not only battle against your opponent, but you battle against some other issues.
Yeah, that is a very good point indeed, because as you mentioned, it is the height of summer. The weather in Shanghai is very warm, 37 degrees, and humid, I would guess. And of course, when you're staying in the hotels, they have like the air conditioning on full blast, and you're surrounded by people probably coughing and being ill as well. And it's easy to pick up illnesses, and this can have an impact. I wouldn't necessarily say that being sick that might necessarily impact your chess, but what I want to convey, it does impact your energy levels. Exactly. And we see the bishop come to e3, and I feel that the energy levels and maybe getting a good night's sleep is actually much more critical than whether you have a headache, because or like something blocks when the world is spinning around, because I almost got some GM norms when I had something wrong with my ear and the world was spinning, and it was so unpleasant to be like alive, so to speak, that the chess was just such a beautiful distraction that when I was focused at the board, I could just forget my health troubles. And bishop e3.
Exactly, right. Bishop to e3. Okay, but still the game is taking place, right? And we can never be sure how a player feels. And well, okay, what if knight goes to d5? Does it mean that Wenjun is heading to c5 as her bishop? She's gonna play bishop c5. At least she took out this bishop to a safer place from d2, right, where I was worried it might be attacked easily.
Yeah, bishop c5, and if you anchor it with b4, you know, it's looking very nice, especially as it's eyeing up the e7 knight. So I like this move. I mean, okay, the bishop does feel like it's on an empty diagonal. It's not hitting any target, but it for sure is better than d2, where it was actually doing nothing. And bishop e3, how to respond to that? Can you highlighted since
95. I would be worried about 95. Of course, like a very straightforward way. You attack it and bishop c5. And here, okay, after knight f4, I suppose white is going to play g3. So I might consider preparing. You know, I have this idea of getting my knight to d3. Preparing actually this move by playing bishop f5 first. So instead of jumping to f4, I first play bishop f5. Now threatening to play knight f4 and then knight d3. So it feels like white is almost obliged to take actions to play g3. And, well, and let's see what's happening here.
Keeping control. And yeah, and just to kind of reinforce that you might not necessarily, as black, it's very risky to make decisions like rook e8, even though we're often told that trades are the kind of like the simplest route to equality. In this case, no, because there are 3 minor pieces on the board for each side, and of course the action will then transfer to the queen side, and white is primed to begin there. So you like really wants to keep the rooks.
And if black tries something like b4, then your idea with bishop e2 comes into life, and it looks very nice. Because again, you see, one single pawn move does change a lot in the position. And here the pawn moves forward, it seems so active and so happy, but in fact it weakens the c4 square and the whole f1 a6 diagonal, and those 2 bishops suddenly come into life, and that's of course a dream come true scenario for white. That's certainly the one that black should avoid, and that's why b4 here seems to be quite inaccurate.
And yeah, no, but then when we go back to the original position, knight d5 looks like a great move, but there is no follow through, at least no easy one to speak of. And so this is, can we go back to the original position and bishop e3? And so we looked at knight d5. What other moves does black have? I mean, could you do your idea immediately of going bishop f5?
Yeah, why not? I mean, you can, you know, kind of Lei is about to make a move. Okay, let's wait and see. Hand appeared. Okay, reaching, and
she's reaching for the bishop.
Bishop e4. Bishop to e4. Okay, that was not exactly what I was like suggesting.
Okay.
But her idea, I suppose, is I thought that after to have bishop takes f3 after bishop c5, but then I started wondering, okay, and what then? Let's make this move bishop c5 anyway, because now the bishop is under attack, right? It should be protected somehow. And I thought that, okay, she might consider taking on f3, bishop takes f3 and give a check on d2, but that check doesn't really bring anything. Rook d2, okay, I'll go king c3 happily, and I think white can start feeling happy here.
Yeah, I mean, white has got the dream, right? The bishop pair, access to the queen side, and this rook will not be living a charmed life there on the second row. I mean, it's got nothing to point at, so I agree, you don't want to be capturing that knight. And then, I mean,
what else then?
What else is her plan? Maybe it's just to centralize the bishop, put it back on d5.
Yeah, maybe. But then, can I get back to like this plan of ignoring the fact that black want to take on f3? Or maybe... No, I was thinking about bishop c2 and like kind of inviting black to capture on f3 and just hoping, you know, for this pair of bishops to compensate for this pawn structure damage. But maybe not. Maybe bishop d1 is a little bit premature. And with the bishop on d5, I might consider also playing b4. Yeah, the one good thing behind the bishop on this long diagonal, that the knight on f3 is kind of stuck. It protects the pawn on g2. So if I want to move this knight, I need to do something about the pawn on g2 hanging.
Yeah, you do need to do something about that. And it made me it actually inspired me to when you were suggesting the move bishop c2. I don't know. I was thinking that maybe it's possible to go knight f5,
Right.
and voluntarily ruin your pawn structure, just kind of on the basis that it's not easy to move the knight because the g2 pawn will fall, and you could have some weird thing happening. But okay, I don't think we're going to see anything like that happen. So. Going back to your idea of bishop, let me just find bishop d5.
Bishop d5, by the way, is not the only move. Apparently, with the bishop on e1 and after bishop c5, you can even consider playing knight f5 straight away, because the bishop on d1 is hanging.
So simples.
Yeah, you just ignore.
Chess is so simple at times, and yet so complicated. This is hanging. I did not think about the counterattack, and this is one thing that I've noticed that the Indian teenagers are fantastic at. You know, if you attack a piece, they might not necessarily move it. They will be first of all looking at those counterattacking moves, and knight f5.
They're
and
very
this
resourceful.
is her idea.
Right.
Yeah, completely.
Well, it might not be, I mean, because bishop d5 also seems to be a very nice move. But here the difference is that, like, if I play b4 here, I still want to kind of activate my bishop to get it, to move it out. Then, you know, with the knight on f5, maybe something like bishop takes f3 can be considered. But again, you can never be sure, because my idea was after bishop takes f3 to move the knight onto e5 and, you know, start jumping knight d3, knight c4, all those checks threatening. But then I stopped for a while, and I was thinking about...
This looks quite dangerous, right? Because you have to cover the d3 square. And at the same time, you don't want to be allowing knight takes bishop. So say you play like a move to cover d3, and then you can give a check. And, well, not bishop c5, but instead we have a very critical
why didn't we consider it? That's true. Bishop to b6. That's true. I mean,
think
attacking two pieces at the same time. We're in so positional mood right now that we kind of skip this tactical idea. And what now? Two pieces are on the attack.
Well, I'm guessing that you can't. There are no captures. Like bishop takes knight, that's not really on the radar. But I mean, you do have the counter-attacking possibility of rook b8.
Right. Again, I keep forgetting that the rook can just stay on the d file. You can play rook d7 or the bishop on e4 is not really hanging. I keep forgetting about it. you see it attacked and you start panicking.
Yeah, okay, rook b8, completely unnecessary. Rook d7, oh my goodness me. And you explained
it is
to
on the
us
board.
as well, and it's on the board. Okay. And again, even though Lei Tingjie did hesitate, it does feel what's happened is that she's worked out this endgame with her team beforehand, because she knows exactly what moves to make. Rook d7 came completely instantly.
She's playing so fast. It's incredibly fast.
And also bishop e4 looked like an unnatural move as well. Putting the bishop on a loose square, loose pieces drop off. That's what we're taught at every opportunity. And so it seems like Lei Tingjie, she knows exactly where she has to put the bishop in order to maintain this dynamic equilibrium, and rook d7 on the board.
Right, and now, yeah,
B4.
Chu is faced with quite a hard choice. I mean, what to do? Because again, b4, it feels so natural, you know, this just idea of putting the bishop onto b3, but again, at the same time, it weakens the c4 square so much. Well, she decides to trade. Yeah, she just feels that there is no way to keep this pair of bishops. It's just too dangerous, right? It's becoming too dangerous in a way to trying to insist on having a pair of bishops on the board. But okay, now 2 bishops are gone. And as you were saying, your theory, remember? About 2
It wasn't my
knights?
theory.
Okay.
I take no ownership of this theory, but now we will see whether these 2 knights who
The theory you mentioned, yes.
Yeah, the theory is that these 2 knights are able to work on the 2 color complex, black and white squares, and white can only battle on the dark squares. That's the dark square bishop. And yeah, it's going to be put into practice right now.
Exactly. We're gonna check it out. Knights are
And
tricky.
one of the
indeed.
first things, they are tricky, they're crafty pieces. But one of the things that knights excel in is they love to have squares that are anchored by pawns. So for instance, b4 would be a strategical mistake because suddenly a knight could find itself on c4 and you're never going to chase it away.
Right.
And just, yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds obvious, but one forgets these things. I certainly do at points.
We all do, yeah, forget them. Yes.
Yeah, one square that's kind of anchored already is like the e5 square. So there's gonna be some fight over this one, and there's also going to be some fight over what black is doing with this e7 knight. And the next question for white is, how are you going to mobilize the knight on f3?
Exactly. How to get it into play. Because
Tricky.
right now this knight, yeah, it protects the d2 square, and it feels like it should not be leaving this task. It should not leave the second rank unprotected. So unless you move your king to c2 or your rook to e2 or something to protect this second rank, you should not be moving your knight away.
Yeah, and there's also the possibility that will plague black is, do you allow the trade of rooks? So say for instance black makes a move, I don't know what, but let's pretend, and king c2 happens. Do you maintain this rook on the first row? So for instance, if you move to h1 or move to a1, I mean the rook can come to e1 for instance, and say I'm going to force you to get rid of those rooks. And again, I think the battle will happen on the queen side, and there it is white who is very well placed for that one. But,
I would keep the rook on the d file. Like, for example, I'm calculating something like knight f5, king to c2, and then I think I would play rook d5. I would not dare to move the rook away from a central line. So I prefer to keep it here in the center. It just feels that all the action is taking place right there. And let's have a look at what might happen after b4, for example, because again it feels so natural
but maybe the knight will come to d6 now. And do you remember I was I'm going to whisper this, Alexandra, but I remember I said that the knights love squares that are anchored and they're so easy to forget.
Right, well,
think you
in
might
that
have-
case,
yeah.
probably white is kind of almost obliged to capture on d6 and make a draw somewhere here.
Yeah, but that's not optimal for Ju Wenjun.
It's not.
Just,
But it's not the worst scenario either.
No. And there we see her looking down and going back to the position after bishop c5. I mean, I like knight f5. That's a very natural move. Lei Tingjie's, it's also very much in keeping with Lei Tingjie's style. Ha 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 ha! I like the puns that everyone comes up with, and of course, will Lei Tingjie's piece combination give Ju Wenjun nightmares? Wink, wink.
Right. Nice. This one is a nice one.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe, and but there we see white has to take this knight. Yeah, if white has to make a trade, a bishop for a knight, then I think the game will naturally finish in a draw. I mean, but I think if a set of knights get traded off and then you have the rook and bishop against the rook and knight, I mean, there's still very much everything to play for Ju Wenjun, because in this type of position, the bishop is the better minor piece. And still, I feel like white's king has way more potential than its counterpart sitting there on f7. As Alexandra's mentioned many times, the action is happening in the center, the long-term potential is on the queen side. There, white does have the long-term advantage.
Because of the king, right? Because of the position of the king. The king is closer. White's king is on the queen side, while the black king is on the king side. And Lei is playing. Did she play rook d5 immediately? Yes, she did.
Rook d5.
Well, it might just, get to the same position that we've discussed with a slightly different move order. We'll see. We'll see what. When you were talking, I said to myself, we hear so much about a pair of bishop, but it feels like we don't talk enough about a pair of knights. So let's do that. Let's do that.
Yeah. We don't. I mean, the only thing that I really can advise is that they're good in closed positions, and also they need posts and backward moves. You must always look out for backward knight moves. That is the thing that makes them crafty. But apart from that, I mean, we don't have I don't have at least certain ideas, like what structures suit them for instance in this, are two knights working
Swiss
together,
cheese structures. Swiss cheese structures. Swiss cheese structures, I think, suit knights the most.
Yes.
They're like those mouses getting into those holes. And also, I think it's one of the unfairest thing in chess. Those endgames with two extra knights with no pawns, no other pieces being a draw. It just sounds so unfair to me. You have two extra pieces, two. It's like 6 pawns, in total, as we're taught, and it's a draw. And,
yeah,
I'm
it is
always
unfair.
disappointed. I got so mad. It's just for chess.com once I got this endgame with two knights. Somehow I reached this endgame and the game declared automatically as a draw. I said, come on, there are still there are chances to checkmate. I mean, of course, if white gets to the corner and play, but I still can checkmate. I get this 50 moves. I should get this 50 moves. I was so mad of this game. Just the system somehow chess.com, because it's being played, I believe, by USCF chess rules, and it just automatically is declared as a draw. I said, no way. Come on, let me jump around for a few more moves. So yeah.
So you automatically got to this end game. You didn't get the chance to play it out.
No, it's just a draw. That's it.
So
the game is over. It's like, when there is a threefold repetition, the game is declared a draw automatically by chess.com, which is very helpful, by the way. Thank you so much. you can never count, I mean, in time trouble. But in that particular case, because still, I do believe that this whole situation is so unfair in chess. You have 2 extra pieces, and you don't even get a chance to play on. That's weird, right?
I agree with you. You were robbed. You at least of the chance.
Right.
The chance to try. And that's very important. So rook to d5 on the board. Yeah, I agree. I've never thought about the unfairness of it all, but I do know that there are some campaigns by certain people who are like that. They think that stalemate should not be a draw. Because I mean, when you think about it, it's completely also unfair. You know, the other side can't make a move. Why should they get given?
Well, at least you should get some 3/4 of a point, right?
Right. Yeah. Something.
Or 1/4 or whatever. I mean, something.
Yeah.
Right.
It should finish the game, right? You know.
Yeah.
So
Let's start a revolution. Let's change those rules.
And stalemate, controversial. Yeah, and one move. You know, one thing I never really understood especially when I was learning the game was en passant. I was like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. You know, just.
No, it's just because.
Challenge the pawn.
No, I wanted to say that it's because of the fact that one of the pawns just made more work, but then I realized that actually it can be. Yeah, exactly. So it's one of the pawns has already marched to the 4th or to the 5th rank, right? When it gets this ability to make this en passant capture. But so it works so hard already, you know, it spends so much time to get there, while the opponent's pawn just, you know, stayed, did nothing, and now it wants to surpass this pawn that reached already the 5th rank. And that's why it's like this fair thing for this pawn that already
when you put it
works
like
so
that,
hard.
it makes sense, but otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Because you can bypass it, right? Because pawns capture diagonally, and that this pawn has moved to d5 by passing it. But yeah. En passant, stalemate. Those.
Okay, maybe there are other unfair things in chess. We would be happy to hear from chat what you find like unfair in chess according to your like feelings, and make sure to share your thoughts with us.
Yeah, definitely. We like to get on the soapbox and just complain, or maybe not complain. And there we see, because this is going to be a long game. And talking about long game, I mean, we've seen a lot of long things from Wenjun. She's now ticking to under 23 minutes now. She's not in any time pressure because, of course, the players just played so quickly in the opening that it's now moved 29. But it will be a factor.
There. Yeah, it's getting there.
It's still in there, right? I mean, the thing is, though, I'm just thinking about the drama that will happen, not on move 40, but on move 50 and move 60. And, you know, by then, perhaps she doesn't have so much time.
Yeah, well, we might not reach as far, because I think like the main hesitation right now for Wenjun, right, the reason she's contemplating and spending her time is that if she wants to protect her bishop by playing b4, it feels a little bit risky for her. It does weaken white squares. She can expect black's knight getting to the c4 or d3 square at some point, not immediately, but later on. And if, I mean, it does, then the position will, kind of start shaking too much. So, but the bishop is under attack, and that means, well, if she retreats to e3, there's going to be knight f5 attacking the bishop. So the only other option that is she's left with is just capturing on e7 and saying, okay, well, I did try to play this endgame. It didn't quite work out the way I was hoping it to work out. Let's agree on a draw. Let's pack our suitcases, get to Chongqing, and just finish it there.
But I have a question for you. Is it really that easy of a draw? Like, for instance,
like a4, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
bishop takes knight. You
so
said
now
it,
we're gonna
and
figure it out.
right, because I was thinking, how And we have a very quick move.
A4, yes, here it comes. Exactly, that's what, when I was declaring it a draw, I was still thinking and saying to myself, okay, but what about white's king being closer to this queen side, right, to this b5 pawn, and the rook on e4, so like wisely cutting off black's king from the center and from actually getting to the queen side. So it might still, the position might still require a few accurate moves by black to like fully equalize it.
And step one for black is actually to prevent this king from, well, snaking its way into the queen side and terrorizing these pawns. So that's a continuous threat that white has. And as you mentioned, this king on f7 very much offside. And I wonder whether Lei Tingjie's solution might be instead to create some counterplay there on the king side. I'm wondering whether g5 is a possibility.
Play on the side where you're stronger. That's a rule of thumb, right? They say to play where you have like superior power, and that's exactly where black should be playing, because a4 is a nice move, but even, to get closer to this pawn to attack it, it's still gonna require a lot of time. And when you go to c3 with your king, I can always play knight c6, kind of stopping your king from getting to b4. And even if you get to b4, I have this knight c6 check. So it's not so clear how actually white is planning to put pressure on to b5, and that's probably exactly why black just should be doing her own thing on the king side, right? g5, why not?
And whilst Lei Tingjie is thinking, let's do that deep dive. So g5, and the big idea was that your idea is simply just to dislodge the knight and give a check with the rook to d2. So big questions as well, because should white be capturing this pawn on g5? Should there still be
let's also
some tension left?
Ignore it and play king to c3.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure.
That in fact, after king to c3, if black is willing, she can play rook c5. Knight went to c6 immediately. Okay, a possibility, but g5 also was pretty tempting, right? To start this counterplay on the king side. Why not? But probably knight c6 is safer in a way. And the game can even finish in something like very fast after king c3, rook c5, king d3, rook d5. All capture first, yes. That's
capture first? And so you were mentioning this line, pawn takes pawn, and then king c3.
Yes.
And then
knight c5, rook c5, check, and king to d3, and back to d5.
Yeah,
and that's it. Basically.
That would be it, and we would say goodbye Shanghai. And hello Chongqing, and definitely it would be a new chapter in the Women's World Championship match 2023 if that repetition does happen. But we have seen Wenjun deploy her match strategy time and time again. It is to keep the game alive for as long as possible. So I don't think we're going to see king c3. We're not going to see this repetition
what else
from
then?
her.
How else?
Okay.
The knight is not moving, right? Because it protects the d2 square.
Yeah.
The rook is also, are you going to consider moves such as rook e2? Well, I doubt it's really a way to play for a win.
Actually, no. Rook e2, I like it.
But then I can get back to this plan of being active on the king side, right? I can play g5.
That's true. And I might
start
regret
being
my sophisticated moves.
Exactly, I can start being aggressive.
And I set a trap for you. I take this pawn.
Okay, what What is it?
And then I go
What
rook
are you
c2.
preparing?
There you go. There's my trap.
Ooh.
Just to
I'm very-
highlight it. Okay, and this was the big trap that if you defended the knight with the rook, that would be a huge mistake, because after this, take it, and you do net some material. But okay, that was not played by Wenjun. She did not retreat the rook. Instead, she moved the king to c2.
Yeah, but it's the same, almost the same story. I mean, if black gives a check, if she plays rook to c5, whether is Wenjun going to play on, like for example, I don't know, king d3, king d2, rook d5, is she gonna play on in this endgame, or she's just gonna agree on a draw? Because yeah, I think moving the king to e3 or e2 is possible, but again, it feels to be a little bit risky, because if I go, well, king e3, I think king e2 would have been probably better, although I'm not sure, because after king e3, rook d1 becomes possible.
Okay, you need to look after this square.
Yeah.
But then again, is this really a serious winning try?
Well, rook c5, if I keep insisting, if I just move my rook back and forth, what are you gonna do to improve your position?
I don't improve the position. That's the problem. I don't feel the king on e2 is it's only very slightly better than its counterpart on f7, and king c2. No, this feels very drawish to me. So, well, we will see now. Will Lei Tingjie play rook c5 check and keep checking the king? Do you think she will?
She might, yeah. Why not? I mean, it's a very good result for her overall to lead the match after playing in Shanghai, because we already mentioned that Shanghai is Wenjun's hometown, and well, it must be more comfortable to play in your own hometown, I suppose. We do say that at home even walls seem to be helping you, well, at least in Russian we do have the saying. And why not just finish with this first half of the match? Actually, no draw. We shall play on, says Lei Tingjie.
Maybe Lei Tingjie has learned her lesson from one of her previous games, where she just repeated the moves and she gave Wenjun an extra opportunity to play on. So she's like, no, not falling for that trick again. And instead g5 on the board. Again, completely viable approach. The white king isn't necessarily that fantastically placed on c2, and well, there's some tension now that Wenjun has to look after on the king side.
The king is on c2, right? The difference is with the king being on c2, because with the king on c3 and this g5 move, I was even trying to evaluate the pawn endgame that might happen after h takes g4, f takes g4, knight to d4. It looks a little bit scary to go with white, but since the king is on c2 now, knight d4 is not possible. But okay, she can change her mind probably, and after g5 get back to c3.
Put the king on c3 and force this repetition. And I think it's the perfect time to take this to another break. We'll keep you all on a cliffhanger. Will Wenjun just accept that this position is a draw and perhaps try and force a repetition? Or will she keep the game alive somehow? We will find out just after this break.
Your subscription makes shows like this possible, which is why our Twitch subscribers will never see ads on chess.com. Connect your chess.com account and Twitch account at go.chess.com/connect accounts, and bang, boom, voila, you're done. 100% ad-free bliss forevermore. Whether you're following our events on site or on stream,
Okay,
type the
back.
command connect in the chat, and thank you for helping bring these
For
shows
some
to
reason,
life.
you're really low.
Looking for a new way to learn chess? Meet Dr. Wolf, the ideal chess coach and companion. Play against Dr. Wolf as he explains everything step by step, points out strategic ideas, and alerts you to your mistakes. Train with him and go over your past mistakes until you master them. Choose from over 35 lessons created for all skill levels. No matter your level, everyone could use a coach. Download Learn Chess with Dr. Wolf for Android or iOS devices today. What's the best way to follow any chess event from the Champions Chess Tour to the Candidates, Speed Chess Championship, Title Tuesday, FIDE World Championship, and so much more? Chess.com/events has all of the top chess tournaments played both over the board and online. Analyze and review games from the world's greatest players with live commentary, cloud analysis, opening explorer, and table bases. Find all the key event information, including schedules, prizes, results, news reports, player bios, tiebreaks, and more. Even compete by voting for your predicted results. Explore chess.com/events today on web or with our iOS and Android apps and experience chess like never before.
Hi everyone, and let's go back to Shanghai and all the action of Game 6 in the Women's World Championship Match 2023. Remember, this is the very last time that we will be playing a game here in this wonderful city of dreams. And Wenjun, she hails from Shanghai, so will she manage to make the home crowd proud and get that much needed victory? Or will the game finish in a draw, as it looks that way? And the show will move on to Chongqing, which is Lei Tingjie's hometown, and the match will continue from there. Well, we will find out. And there we return to the playing hall. We see Lei Tingjie sitting at the board, just calmly observing what is about to happen. And Wenjun, she's poised for action, but it does look like things are not going her way in this match. And do you think with Lei's last move playing g5 that she's actually trying to turn the tables and say, you know what, I'm the one that is going to be playing for more. And it will be you, Wenjun, who is going to grovel out the draw.
Yeah, exactly. It looks this way. Again, the World War engines may scream out that this position is a dead draw. But, I mean, in terms of a practical game, it's definitely black who is pushing right now. We're on move 34. It's 13 minutes to the time control. We see Wenjun glancing at the chess clock once in a while. And, I mean, feeling uncomfortable because she needs to be precise now. And of course, it's still a draw. We all understand it, but... h takes g5. It's an interesting decision because eventually it kind of helps black to create a passed pawn, right? Now it's a very easy plan like h4, g4, h3, and it might be very, very unpleasant for a white. That's why capturing on g5, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of yesterday's decision by Ju to capture on b4. Remember, she just exchanged those pawns, letting white somewhere in the future, not immediately, but having these outbreak possibilities. And this h takes g5, it's in a way similar to that. Again, maybe in this like concrete situation it doesn't change the evaluation of the position, but like in the long term, again, imagine like a pawn endgames, they all must be they might be lost for white, I'm sorry. Also knight endgames, we often evaluate them similarly to pawn endgames. I mean, in other words, the side with a far advanced passed pawn always has an advantage. It might still be a draw, nothing, I mean, critical just yet, but just a tendency of a possibility getting there. It can be, I mean, it can become quite unpleasant for white.
Right, and I have to say, I also instinctively reach for this pawn trade, but the more I look at it, the more I see that no, this is a bad step, because as you've highlighted several times, the action now transfers over to the king side, because it's going to be all about whether Lei Tingjie can create that passed pawn. And nothing is going to be happening on the queen side at all. And now all that Lei Tingjie has to do is just simply move the king and Lei
space, yes.
Like, wow, what is this decision? And one of the reasons also, just to kind of like highlight the point that we do see the match format there, that there is no draw offer allowed before move 40. So momentum is slightly turning in Lei Tingjie's favour. We will see whether that's enough for her to put the pressure on Wenjun. And many moves available to her. She can improve the king, she can jump in and give a check, just to drive the king backwards. Or if she wants to, she can even start that pawn thing now with h4.
Right. Yeah, but probably bringing a knight closer to the king side somehow.
Makes a lot of sense. I didn't know whether knight d4 was a move that you wanted to play, but probably is, because there's still no way for the white king to kind of get in to the golden b4 square. It's covered by this knight.
But okay, in a practical game, I would not, I think, dare to move my knight from c6, to tell you the truth, because it kind of lets leaves the b4 square unprotected, and I mean, you're always scared of those counter chances, right, of your king getting to b4. So I might consider something king b6, king f6, I'm sorry, or yeah, king f6, I think, because I wouldn't be sure whether it's a time to move my pawn up yet. So
I'm not sure either. And so they bring the king forward. There's a consequence to that. So sorry, I was like hovering around my rook there. But move the rook to e8 is a direct result of that move. King f6.
Yes.
And is this scary?
That's true. Well, it's not that scary, right? Because I can always like get back to this rook c5, rook d5 plan if I don't like certain thing. But what about?
But what happens, right, if you go king back? Are you know, will white retreat the rook to, or will white try to do stuff like? I mean, still.
Probably
this rook on
the
d5
rook.
is great, you know.
Because, for example, if you play
e5.
rook c8, no, then I will play knight b4.
Yeah. King c3 and hello.
Well,
what is happening?
Knight to d3. I was thinking about the
you
rook
start
to
hitting at f2 and you start hitting at e1.
Yeah,
and
that looks nice.
Well, okay, it's a race, it's a mess, but do you want to engage in this?
No, I don't. I don't. We'll see what the players think and whether they're ready to engage in such messy complications.
Yeah, it's totally unnecessary. And the position is relatively simple. And Lei Tingjie will be looking at ways that she can clarify.
Well, this draw offer is on the table, right? It's still on the table, I realized. I mean, rook c5, rook d5, and just agree on a draw.
And what happens if, white says, nope, we are not going to go for that, and just put the king on e3? I'm going to go there because I have the power of take back. In real life, I might just accept it as a draw.
And if I play knight e5 here, doesn't it look scary? Knight e5.
Knight e5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does look scary. This is coming my way. And well, it's not really scary, so to speak. It's just that the white king isn't doing anything. You know, king goes to d3. There's no future.
Probably I can still play knight to f3.
Oh, can you? Okay.
No, knight to f3. Yes, because I was saying that pawn endgames are winning in most of the cases for black, but I checked out some positions with like exchanging on d4, and here look, after knight takes f3, king takes f3, rook d3, I play rook to e3, and if it does look scary, but in fact it might still be white holds, because after rook takes e3, king takes e3, I don't need to run towards the b pawn. In fact, I think I should stay in the center, like you go king f6 and I get to e4, like king e4, and I stay there.
Okay, and you just, and if I go
b4,
I guess that, and if you go b4, and then you just wait.
How do I wait? Do I play? It's always so difficult, those pawn end games. Do I play? Maybe I should not wait.
But you can also go f4, right?
Yes, that's what I'm calculating. But first, I wanted to, understand what would be happening if I go to d4, like king to d4.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Probably it's losing already. Maybe
and,
not.
We see
king
the
f5.
evaluation
Yeah,
bar.
you see it drops. So I just wanted to. Yes, and the reason is that after I'm just too late. After king c4, black plays h4. It's important, I believe, to start with the h pawn, although maybe even g4 wins. Then king takes b4, g4, and black is just so far like ahead. King c5, h3, and at least 2 tempi ahead. Exactly.
You can just do some counting 3 moves away, and here's 1, Move that out of the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Loads of time. Yeah, exactly. No, it's very, very important. Outside pass pawns are fantastic. You have to keep an eye on them, and the only way to draw was to go f4, but that was enough.
Wasn't the only way? Was it the only
maybe
way?
Not. Maybe I'm being.
No, just interesting.
Let's go back.
I don't know.
Sorry. Let's go back. So king e4. You don't really want to give ground, right? So b4. I was a bit worried after g3 that there might be some h4s.
But after g3, king e6, and still, right, f4 might be able to hold. Although I'm not so sure.
I wasn't sure about these type of endgames either, where black will win the f pawn, white will win the h pawn, and maybe the white king catches.
Okay, you need to calculate everything, to be sure. That's the problem about pawn endgames. You really need to calculate, and those calculations are...
Exactly.
Yeah, I see what you mean. For example, like g takes h4, g takes h4, king f4, and then black just kind of wait. King e6, for example.
King e6. Yeah, and even then, black can also make... Oh, it's complicated. It's complicated, but it probably... Okay, it's enough for a draw, it says. So
king g4, king e5. My idea was, after you capture on h4 to play king f4. That's a move that makes you happy, usually. But
this
is still a draw.
Apparently so.
King h5 probably. King f3, king g5.
Oh no, king g5 wins. So you have to play king f5. Okay,
exactly, so you can't,
Oh, well, that was many moves into the future, but it's certainly something that the players will have at the back of their minds. So let's refresh our minds and see what has happened. Because Lei Tingjie played rook e5. Okay.
So we are getting to the knight's endgame, and that's interesting actually. I was not thinking about that, but that's quite reasonable, because I was saying that pawn endgames, and we were taught in our childhood that knight endgames should be evaluated almost as pawn endgames. In other words, if there is an advantage in a pawn endgame, then there might be as well advantage in the similar knight endgame. It's not always the case, and actually I think in most of the cases that I've seen, it's easier to hold with knights. But in any way, it's like reasonable for black to try to get to either a pawn or a knight endgame in this situation with a possible far advanced pawn.
Yeah. And I think it's very important here that you probably don't succumb to the tension and play rook takes rook, because this is making the trade on black's territory, because black will actually then capture, and black's improving the rook. The white king is stuck, and you still have this idea of going h4, g4, h3, creating that pass pawn. So that's not a move. There, and keep going.
But with the knights on the board, maybe it's not that unpleasant for white, because in the line that you were suggesting, if I capture immediately, knight takes e5, I go king to c3, and you start running with your pawns, right? You start playing h4. Yeah. Although first I also need to consider playing f3, but anyway, if I ignore, I play king to b4.
Okay.
And you play...
Let's go g4.
Yeah, g4. I capture, king takes b5.
Wow.
And then my idea is after h3. Right, exactly. That's the difference. Having actually one knight on the board, I just play knight f1 and I say, okay, now what? Do you have all the time in the world to get to f2 and, to disturb my knight? Because I also have some counterplay with my b pawn. And we know this magical knight circuit when you were saying. I can see it. Now, imagine the position without the knight on e5 and the pawn on b3, those are gone, and the king is already on f2. This position is a draw, because the knight is on this like saving circuit, knight h2, knight g4, knight e3, knight f1. It just hangs on there. There is no way to make progress with the black king.
Yeah. And this magical circuit that you're talking about, sometimes you go there, sometimes you go there, and it's a great circuit to be. And so maybe we'll try to get this on the board. So say for instance here,
I played before,
play before, you come here, and I get out of the way. Hang on,
king
let's just make it
c6,
super easy.
c6.
Takes this.
Oh, you want
like this, and now it's there, and now we'll put the king. We'll pretend that
my king is
the king is like super close, but let's pretend that the king is not that helpful. And here comes the thing that you're talking about.
Yes.
Hang on, wait 1 second. So you have to be a bit precise here. You have to be.
Although I'm not sure, king g2, knight e3, it's still there. I mean, I was worried for a second, but then I realized that it doesn't really.
Okay.
It's okay.
So
it's okay.
even if you do this, it still gets onto that beautiful circuit where it's a draw, and then the king, if the king comes here, oh look at that. So let me just highlight this. So it goes there. You still can't push the pawn, so now you have to chase. So if you play something else, you come here.
It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. One more unfair thing in life. Then the knight just stays there. There is no way to make progress. It feels like, it doesn't have enough space.
And if it comes here, you give a check here. And now the king goes, I've finally chased you. No, you don't, because knight comes back to e3. And h2, you get on this circuit again. And
quite easy.
That's very important pattern to memorize.
Indeed.
And let's refresh and
might save you some endgames, and there are beautiful endgame studies, like just so complicated, where you need, like the key of these endgames is to get to this like circuit with your knight, and in order to get it, instead of like getting to the center with your knight, you need to get somewhere to a2, because apparently it's like the closest way for your knight to get to one of those squares, like c3, d1, f2, and not via d5 because of the king, of the opponent's king. So there are unbelievable studies.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of those, but definitely an important pattern to have. This is your circuit. Bum, 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 bum. Interesting. Sorry, I was just admiring the pattern there.
I can feel you. Yes.
And decision time for Wenjun. Okay, the players haven't reached the move 40 yet. Still a few more moves to make, and then they will get that bonus time of half an hour. They will still get that increment of 30 seconds per move. And there you go. I was thinking that king d3 would be played, but instead we are seeing a knight trade.
That's quite surprisingly, in a way, because I was also expecting king d3. We say that it's like this endgame is a draw, but that's the way to go. I mean, okay, we didn't consider this move, knight e4, but in fact she attacks the pawn on g5, and she wants to play knight d6. Can I ignore it? I mean, after g4, can knight play knight d6 and just capture the pawn?
I would say no.
And g6,
here is
for
where.
example?
And here is where I was going to say you've got to be very precise with your king. You shouldn't be putting your king on e6, because the knight can take here and come back to d4 with jack. So king to g6, and now. I
mean, it looks very, very risky, right? But let's see. Maybe just Chu calculated everything. She sees how to hold this position.
We have, this could also be backfire on black, because g3 is a way just to jam up this advance of the h pawn. So that is why Lei Tingjie said nope. She's not pushing that pawn. King g6. And now the idea is
I can play king c3, right? I can
king
try
c3.
to get with my king 2 there.
And I guess you go knight c6. I mean, it's quite dangerous to...
but okay, and if I wait, king to d3, if I just wait.
And somehow I want to push these pawns, but I probably should not push anything. Because if I push g5, then g3 just leaves this one useless.
I would still consider playing h4. Because, okay, h4...
Yeah, if I go h4, then you go f3.
But f3, then you have this, road for your king. King f5, king f4, king g3. The only problem is that I'm not going to let you, yes, get to f4.
Yeah, king
e3.
e3.
I'll play king e3.
But okay, you can just put like this and say, where's your progress, white?
Well, but it's black who's pushing for a win, I think. It's been...
Oh, okay. So I thought this was Wenjun trying to win the b pawn.
No. Well, the h pawn we were told. Well, those endgames are very dangerous, right? In general, and white has to be careful. It's quite a lucky thing that they are still able to hold this position. As I can see it.
Yeah. No. Objectively, you're right. Okay, king e3. Let me just get to...
King to d2, right?
King to d2.
Getting to e3. Just to play it safe.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, I was just thinking in terms of the match situation that Wenjun was trying to pull off a little miracle where somehow or other she jammed up these pawns and then she had a free hand to catch the b pawn, but obviously that is not going to be happening. It is a pipe dream. King d2.
Yeah, we might see some repetition, something like this. For example, h4, right? Threatening to play g4. White plays f3, like stopping black's plan. King f5, of course. What else would you do? King e3, stopping again white's king from getting to f4, and then something like if black plays b4, and then we might see some repetition. Knight d6, king e6, knight e4, king f5. Like it's a silent draw over.
Yeah, that could very well happen. But well, I'm very impressed by Lei Tingjie's opening choice, actually, because I was just gonna during the breaks I was checking my notes out and I'm pretty sure I just stopped and said white is better. But Lei Tingjie, she's put in the serious work behind it and she's discovered the way to neutralize the bishop pair. And she's now found herself in an endgame where she's the one who has that slight pressure, which, to be honest, was a bit unthinkable when you saw the position that emerged from the opening.
Well, initiative is a dangerous thing, right? I mean, a pair of two bishops, it's something like a long-term advantage, but initiative, it's here and now, and when those bishops got exchanged, initiative still remained, and in a way, Wenjun was able to, like, kind of diminuate it, to get it to a very minimum level, but because of the time advantage, white is lower on time, but still should be enough to hold, right? I think Wenjun just demonstrated the way to hold this position. It's very important to stop at a certain point to realize that, okay, I mean, she of course had her ambitions and hopes up in this endgame, but then just something didn't quite go her way, and at exactly this moment she just started exchanging pieces and made some precise decisions to make a draw.
And once this game is finished, the players will have a 2-day rest as the location for the match shifts to Lei Tingjie's hometown of
Chongqing.
Chongqing. My mind just went blank. And I was going to ask, what do you think the impact will be about this 2-day break of having to pack up your clothes, get on a 2.5-hour plane ride, move inland, and there we see knight c6 on the board.
Okay.
Do you think that this will be actually beneficial for both players? Because they can say, well, the first half of the tournament, that was a separate event almost, and mentally we're in a different place. We'll have time to adjust and change things around. And king e3 played.
Well, we're gonna see, but for the moment, it seems that Wenjun is suffering a little bit. I don't know, maybe she's not feeling very well. As I mentioned, she's been coughing throughout her game, and maybe the energy level is not as high as it should be. Well, of course, maybe she's like that. I mean, it's her way of playing, you know, of doing things, but still it feels she's lacking some kind of energy, and Lei is very energetic, she's very determined, and it seems that she's not stressed at all. I mean, she's just been enjoying it. She said that, you know, my life is good in those press conferences. She just keeps saying, I enjoyed being here, I don't have any pressure, I mean, it's fine for me either way, and it just well, sometimes people say certain things and you don't believe them, but I do believe that that's exactly the way she is feeling. You just look at her and you feel this power, you know, you feel this desire to fight, to play, and to win. And like from this first half of the match, well, we knew it was not supposed to be an easy walk for Wenjun, because of this candidates match so convincingly won by Lei final match and the whole candidate series, and because of her performances in the last years, once a year, but like just winning this, just having just one shot to make, and more than enough for her, it seemed. So yeah, for the moment it seems that Wenjun really needs this time, you know, to somehow recuperate, to get this energy level back. I don't know, to change something maybe a little bit. And for Lei, well, she just should get going. For her, everything goes very well. I mean, she's very well prepared. She seems to be in the right mood, and she's leading the match. 6 games to go. So.
Definitely 6 games to go. And do you think 2 days is enough to get over the change of a location, like changing hotels, taking it's a 2.5-hour plane ride, so that's quite significant. And as we all know, traveling can be quite tiring. And I'm going to whisper this, especially the older you get, you feel it more.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Lei is going to her hometown. So still, I mean, this psychological advantage, score advantage, and the whole fact of this transferring, right? Quite a short break, I would say 2 days. Yeah, I would also need a few more, it seems, to when travel is required to get accustomed to. So it all seems to be in Lei's favor, but again, I mean, you have to adjust, right? You have to play according to the rules. The rules are same for both players, and it's up to you whether you are able to adjust and to perform well, or you are not able. Then maybe, I mean, you're not supposed to be a world champion.
And while you were talking, I was also looking at the face of Wenjun, and it really, you know, you kind of highlighted she looks like she's suffering, and I just couldn't help but think, yeah, you know, she looks completely depressed and like something is not working for her here. And she's, there you go, h4 on the board, and Wenjun knows that she will be moving to the next location, Chongqing, and she will not have equalized the score. I'm expecting the move f3. 7 minutes. Players on move 39, remember they do get that bonus time on move 40, and they also get the possibility to offer draws once they pass that.
Right. But I don't expect a draw offer.
No.
Unless it's
These
really
two-
a dead draw position.
Actually, these two haven't offered draws at all. I mean, it's always just been about the repetition or when the position has completely clarified. And a draw is, of course, the only possible option here. We'll see. Have you ever
No.
seen it, actually, where someone's offered a draw in the World Championship match and it's been declined?
Well, I'm sure there have been many cases like that, but I just didn't pay attention. Not lately, right? Though.
That's what I'm trying to think of. You know, maybe in the older matches, I'm thinking, we haven't ever seen that. No, I'd like to play on, please. F3 on the board. And
It's no like I've heard some say that like a stronger player, the best move that they like made in a game, it's just this draw offer, because sometimes you see like a game with one player, lower rated player, like having a big advantage, and suddenly you see move 31st or 41, it's draw. It's just because of the fact that of course a stronger player realizes that he or she is in trouble and just uses this possibility, to put some psychological pressure, offer a draw and say, come on, what do you do now?
You know that happened once. Someone was telling me about that. You know, the stronger player was completely worse, like losing objectively. But it was a tough position, and they offered a draw, and then we see knight a5 on the board. So I'm expecting after moves like knight d6.
Knight c3.
Knight c3. Knight c3. I was thinking,
to
knight
have
c3 is
after b4.
even more accurate. So after knight c3, we're going to see if after b4, knight to d5, and then knight takes pawn, and this is 0.00 as clear as it gets. I mean, there is just no way any side is going to be winning this at all. And knight c3 played. I think we're going to see our very first draw offer. Knight c3.
Well, knight takes b3. It's like,
Yep.
almost. It's move 41st, right? Now.
It's 41.
It's like 41 already for white. They made a 41st. Yeah, I think so. So probably she already offered the draw, no? Because it was some kind of a moment, it seemed to me, that she might have had.
Yeah. Well, Wenjun, accepting of the results, she looks up to the ceiling. This game will be headed into a draw, and the show will continue in Lei Tingjie's home city of Chongqing. There we see the players. There's a pause from Lei Tingjie.
Yeah, she has 1 hour on her clock because she got this additional 30 minutes. On this clock, at least, she got it already.
And if you're mean-spirited and you really didn't like your opponent, then you could probably sit there and think for 50
That's what makes me suffer, And there's like, for example, in Gibraltar Chess Festival, we used to have this, like the longest time control post. Like we were starting with 1 hour 40 minutes on our clock for 40 moves, getting 50 additional minutes after move 40, and then 15 more minutes after move 60. And like the thought of my opponent getting additional 50 minutes after the 40th move, it made me so sick at the beginning of the game already, because it already happened several times to me, and after like reaching the 41st move, I was like winning or something like this, and my opponent was just sitting there for another hour, and it was such a torture. And well, I know that it's according to the rules, but okay, I mean, you have nothing else to do in your life, just waste 1 hour of like your lifetime in like looking at this desperate situation. No, really, I mean, something that's so hard to Imagine.
And you're not allowed to leave the playing hall either, so you have to keep going on a loop as well. And then there's only so many games you can look at. I know I had that situation once in Gibraltar where we just passed the 40 move time scramble, and I was actually better, but then it suddenly dawned on me during my travels that, hang on a second, he had one saving resource, and then I started thinking at first it was a winning resource, and then I was thinking no, it's just gonna save the game for him. But you know, he was thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, and I was like, I walked around, then I got bored, and I went and sat down, and I was like, I must not look at the square. And we see b4 being played, and Ju Wenjun will respond with knight d5, attacking the pawn, and now knight takes pawn, knight takes b4,
and
will the players make eye contact? Right. And as we learned, you have to make eye contact.
Oh, really?
yeah. Dania was telling us about this. And g4 on the board.
Ooh.
You got to look at your opponent, and then smile.
Or don't smile. Okay, I see. Eye contact.
Yeah. So, g4. And so people will be like maybe asking, like, it does look like Lei Tingjie has just given up a pawn, but her thinking is that after pawn takes pawn, king will come to g5, and if you try to hold on, then you can play knight to knight to d4?
Yeah, or knight to d2. Well, knight d4 probably.
King e4. And you can even get really bold and actually play king takes pawn, because after king takes knight, you can go h3, or you can step forward with the king. And either way, this is one of life's unfair rules. A knight is not enough to win the game. But let's head back to the playing hall and see what's happened after g4. Pawn takes pawn. The king has moved to g5. And the knight comes back.
Knight to d3, not king to f3. Because black's knight is almost. She's just trying to play knight g6, knight h4. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
She just wants to
good enough.
Sacrifice.
Good enough.
It is
no
good
draw
enough.
offers. No draw offers.
No draw offers at all. But they are playing to.
But in fact, according to the FIDE rules, if you run out of time in this situation after king takes g2, knight takes h4, it's still a victory for one of the side, because checkmate is possible. And while on chess.com, I believe it should be declared draw automatically. Okay, it is a draw. It is a draw.
It absolutely is a draw. I mean, it's been heading that way after Lei Tingjie uncorked some wonderful opening preparation and found the way to neutralize Ju Wenjun's potential advantage. And there we have it. 6 games have been played in the Women's World Championship match 2023, and now the show will move on to Chongqing and take a look at the scoreboard. We do see, after yesterday's monumental, and I keep saying this because it was such a big moment, victory for Lei Tingjie. She is the challenger. Remember, she is trying to be the 18th Women's World Champion. She's in the lead now, 3.5 points to 2.5. And there's going to be a change of scenery, a change of location. What do you think it will be about for Ju Wenjun?
Well, as I mentioned during today's game, I think it feels it's important for her to get those 2 recovery days because, well, she doesn't seem to be just quite in the right mood of playing. Probably she's lacking some energy, maybe something else, right? Running behind the scenes. We can just guess, because actually when we are looking at those games, we just should understand it's just a tip of the whole iceberg, right? Many things keep happening. And even though Shanghai is Ju Wenjun's hometown, a change might do well to her. I really wish for her to kind of find this mood, energy, and to just get back to the board with like everything she's required to keep fighting, because I think we all rooting for this match to go on, and somewhere like inside us we always expect to see a thrilling tiebreak at the very end of this match.
Absolutely. A tiebreak is what we want in life. We want the drama. And talking about tiebreaks, that's in the future. That is going to be happening after Game 12 if Wenjun does equalize. And take a look at the schedule. Because of the change of location, does mean the players will have a 2-day rest. So the play will resume on Saturday, July the 15th. And it will be at the same time, 9 a.m. Central European Time, 3 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm sorry, guys. That is an early start. And yeah, there will be 2 games over the weekend, and then there will be a pause. So been an exciting 2 days here with you, Alexandra, commentating and all the action. You do seem to be Lei Tingjie's lucky charm. Whenever you comment, she's the one pushing or she's the one winning.
Right, but I will certainly be listening to your comments with your next co-host. I don't know, I think you are very excited, but I am excited as you are, because you'll be commenting with your role model, right?
I'm super, I'm really, really excited about all my co-hosts. I've been very, very lucky, but the next co-host, it will be none other than Grandmaster, she's a legend, Judith Polgar. So she will be joining me for the next 3 games, and Alexandra, you will be back for game 10. So I look forward to seeing you and actually commentating with you, because quite frankly, it's been a blast. I've really had a good time. It's been very, very enjoyable. And it's our final day in Shanghai. Thank you everyone for joining in, for watching the show, for commenting, tweeting. It's been a pleasure, and we will catch all the action on Saturday, July the 15th. And once again, thank you all, and enjoy the day wherever you are in the world.
Thank you.